any official stance or opinion. The content you are about to experience may contain strong language, including explicit words and phrases. This language is used for artistic expression.
He walks through the dust on a cracked old road. Hat tilted forward, shadows that load.
Disclaimer.
Eyes burn deep like a fire untamed.
The purposes such as
The
criticism,
nation
comment,
he loved now barely the same.
The Canadian Copyright Act, Section 29, allows
Voice like
individuals to
thunder,
copyright
he calls out the
for
light.
creating a new work such as a mashup and to post the new work online on a site like YouTube. Fair dealing provision for specific purposes like research, private study, education, parody, satire, criticism, review, and
Step up, step up! Yeah! We pledge! We pledge! We pledge! We pledge! Yeah! Step in the arena, mind locked and loaded. Truth on my blade, every line's exploded. You swing your words, I counter with precision. Battle of reason, this is my mission. Raise your fist, let them know. No. Raise your voice, let it blow. Woo! We clash our swords of reason. Cut through like no retreating. Yeah. No fear, no chain, no treason. Woo. We clash our swords of reason. We clash our swords of reason. Cut through like no retreating. Yeah. No fear, no chain, no treason. Woo. We clash our swords of reason. Step back, I'm a scholar and a fighter. Every claim you throw, I strike tighter. Logic and power, I never fold. In the war of words, I'm solid gold. Raise your fist, let them know. Whoa. Raise your voice, let it blow. Woo. We clash our swords of reason. Cut through like no retreating. Yeah. No fear, no chain, no treason. Woo. We clash our swords of reason. We clash our swords of reason. Cut through like no retreating. Yeah. No fear, no chain, no treason. Woo. We clash our swords of reason. Every thought a fortress, every claim a storm. We forge a truth where chaos takes form. Ideas ignite like lightning through the night. In the war of minds, we bring the light. Step in, feel the heat. Truth is my weapon, never beat. Raise them high, break the ceiling. With a fire, with a feeling. We clash our swords of reason. Cut through like no retreating. No fear, no chain, no treason. We clash our swords of reason. We clash our swords of reason. Cut through like no retreating. No fear, no chain, no treason. We clash our swords of reason. We clash our swords of reason. Cut through like no retreating. No fear, no chain, no treason. We clash our swords of reason.
Welcome everybody to Swords of Reason right here on the Speakeasy Show, Mondays, Tuesdays, and Wednesdays. And this is where logic meets passion. If you're new here, the format's simple. Each debater gets 10 minutes for opening statements, followed by 5-minute uninterrupted rebuttals. Then we open the floor for a full hour of back and forth before wrapping it up with a 5-minute closing statement from each side. After that, we're going to spend 30 minutes answering your questions from the chat. I'll drop a live Q&A in the chat. You can put your questions into there. But Super Chats, PayPal, and Cash Apps will be getting priority. And if they fill up the whole 30 minutes, your question may not get answered. So if there's a question you really want to make sure you get asked, make sure to send it via Super Chat, and we'll make sure it gets read, okay? Once the formal debate is done, we open the doors to the community for the Chaos and Chill panel, where anyone can hop in, challenge, question the debaters if they choose to stay, because this part is optional for the debaters. Today's debate prompt: should we allow the death penalty as a punishment? And today's debaters, for the affirmative, we have Wrath of Reason, who is a frequent debate panel visitor and does have a channel right here on YouTube that I'm sure with your support in the chat, he will start posting more often, all right? And for the negative, we have Abe Dinkus, who also has a channel right here on YouTube, who's known for his discussions on hot topics, politics, and debating. So make sure you guys go check him out as well, okay? And you can find Abe in the description, and you will be able to find Wrath of Reason there as well when I get him put in. He's a little harder to find, but I'll get him there for you, I promise. But debaters, you know the rules. Since Wrath of Reason, you are on the affirmative. We're gonna start with your opening statement, and then this at the end we'll give Abe the last word. So whenever you're ready, Wrath of Reason, I will start the timer up with your voice. And thank you both for being here.
All right. Cool. Sounds good. Thanks a lot, Easy. First off, just to Abe, thanks for coming in. Thanks for doing the debate. We're going to kick this off. Let's just go straight at it. So capital punishment is an essential tool for deterring and punishing those who commit the most heinous crimes and acts and legal violence against any American citizen or citizen of the world. It's a way for the families and victims of the heinous crime to have the closure to an issue they did not create. The justice system is not perfect at all times, absolutely not. But the burden put on society for the chance of those people to commit another crime, or just having the closure for the families, knowing that the animal's still not alive and out in that world, outweighs the risks of the conviction. With that being said, I'm not saying anyone suspected of the crime should be put to death, but anyone convicted of extreme harm to a child, prolonged cases of rape or conviction of murder, anyone who takes another person's life should face the punishment. And all kind of like studies show, I believe it's 4% of all people put to the death since 1973. A 4% chance that they were wrong. And that's dating back into the 70s, right? When we didn't have any kind of technology or anything we had no DNA testing. The technology has advanced a lot. So really, with the technology we have nowadays, you probably get that down to a 1% chance. And in my mind, a 1% chance to free the minds of the victims and the families of those closures, to prevent those people from creating any other kind of heinous crime themselves. Like they're still going to be in jail. They're still around other inmates. They could create violent acts against them. They could take an innocent guard's life. And basically the burden we have to pay for these people to sit there on death row. We got to feed them. And they've already taken the life or done a heinous crime towards other people, right? Another point is basically, these people can recommit crime after they're still in the jail. They can, like I said, take it out on jail guards, other inmates. There's chances of the system actually breaking down, and it's absolutely happened in the past, where these people have just been released into the world and then recommitted these crimes again. So now there's the people's lives being lost because of these creations, these flaws in the system. And they can also escape at the same time. If they escape, there they are out doing these crimes again, and innocent lives are being taken. In the closing, in my perspective, anyone who can perform a heinous crime, you're not human. You have no morals. You have no conscience. In my mind, you have no feelings for others. So if you are convicted of that crime, said crime, las vela. And I'll pass my time over to Abe.
All righty. Thank you for that opening, Wrath of Reason. And with that, we're going to hand the mic over to Abe Dinkus for your opening statement. And whenever you're ready, I will start the timer up with your voice.
All right. Well, thank you, Wrath, for coming out to debate this topic tonight. And thank you, Easy, for hosting it. All right. Well, good evening to you, chat. In the next few minutes, my opposition is going to stand before you and try to sell you the oldest, bloodiest fairy tale in the book. That the only way to answer a murder is with another murder. Only this time, we put on nicer suits, call it justice, and pretend the state's hands are clean. They're going to thunder about retribution wave the flag of an eye for an eye, and tell you that strapping a human being to a table and pumping poison into his veins somehow makes us good guys. Let's not waste a second on the theatrics. Let's look at what they're actually asking you to sign off on. First, they'll claim the death penalty deters crime. It does not. Not once, not ever. The National Academy of Sciences, the American Society of Criminology, decades of peer-reviewed research. Every serious study concludes there is zero credible evidence that the death penalty stops murderers any more than life without parole. Murder rates in states that execute and states that don't, statistically identical. Countries that abolish it decades ago, their murder rates went down, not up. The deterrent argument is a ghost story we tell ourselves because it feels good to believe vengeance works. It doesn't. Second, they'll whisper that it's cheaper. That's a flat-out lie. A death penalty case costs taxpayers 2, 3, sometimes even 10 times more than locking them up forever. Why? Because when the state wants to kill, we at least pretend to care about getting it right. That means automatic appeals, 2 trials instead of 1, decades of litigation. California spent $4 billion on its death system since 1978 and executed exactly 13 people. That's over $300 million per execution. For that price, we could have built schools, hired detectives, or funded victim services that actually prevent crime. Instead, we bought a theater of vengeance that bankrupts the rest of justice. Third, he will swear up and down the system is flawless. We only execute the guilty, or at least he'll equivocate. Tell that to Cameron Todd Willingham, burned alive by the state of Texas for killing his daughters in a fire that modern science now says was an accident. Tell that to Carlos de Luna, executed in 1989, while the real killer, another Carlos, bragged about getting away with it. Tell that to the 200 men and women since 1973 who were sentenced to die and then exonerated, some just days before the needle. Some weren't so lucky. We know their names now. The state called them acceptable losses. I call them proof that irreversible punishment and human justice cannot coexist. Fourth, he'll say it brings closure to victims and families. Ask those families. Many will tell you the exact opposite. 25, 30 years of appeals. Headlines every time a new execution date is set. The wounds ripped open over and over again. Life without parole is signed, sealed, and done the day the jury comes back. No more courtrooms, no more media circus, real closure, not the Hollywood version. And finally, listen closely, they'll dress it up as morality. But when the state kills, it does not do it in your name as a healer. It does it in your name as an accomplice. Every botched execution, Albert Greenwood's 29-minute choking in Alabama, Clayton Lockett writhing for 43 minutes in Oklahoma, Joseph Wood gasping 640 times over 2 hours. Every one of those horrors happened because we told the government it's okay to play God as long as it wears a badge. This is not about being soft on monsters. The worst human beings on earth can and should rot in a concrete box for every remaining day they have. Looked at by guards, forgotten by the world, alive only to contemplate what they stole from their victims. That is punishment. That is certainty. That is justice without hypocrisy. We do not need to become killers to prove we hate killing. We do not need to gamble with innocent lives to prove we value the guilty ones lost. And we do not need a broken, biased, bankrupt machine to tell victims' families that their pain matters. The death penalty is not justice. It is the state's longest-running experiment in revenge, and the evidence is in. The experiment has failed. We can protect society, we can punish the guilty, we can honor the dead, and we can still be the kind of people who refuse to answer blood with more blood. That is not weakness, that is the only victory that actually looks like civilization. Thank you.
All right. Thank you for that opening statement, Abe. And with that, we're going to get into the 5-minute uninterrupted rebuttals. So we're going to hand the mic back to Wrath of Reason. So, Wrath of Reason, whenever you're ready for your uninterrupted rebuttal, I'll start the timer up with your voice.
Excellent. Sounds good. Thanks, Ed. So now we're going into a moral stance and turning this into how are we making the government God? Are the murderers' hands clean? Did that person not know what they were doing when they convicted that crime? Now, for the cost part of this whole thing, I do hear this, the pushing out of cases and 2 trials and going to layers. Now, is that a system flaw, or is that the person or the punishment's fault? I believe it's a system flaw. When you have the inevitable proof in front of you, it should not be allowed to be prolonged and pulled out. If you have the undeniable proof that this person has committed that action and that crime and is it a heinous crime, they don't deserve to take another breath. They don't have any right to be able to sit there and take up a cell or even have the time to think. They should be put to death. They should be hand on hand, do to one in which you do to others, and an eye for an eye. You can contest the eye for an eye, but I believe it is something that is morally true. What else did we go here? And really, is it gambling with the percentage of? So when you said the 200, that is the 4% that I brought up previously. And most of those crimes are actually the ones that were acquitted. I would say, I think it was 61% of them were before the year 1990, when we had any kind of forensics and the technology that we have nowadays. And like I said, you could probably reduce that number to well under 1% of unjust crimes of conviction. So now, with that being said, I know everybody goes back to this, but do you support gun laws? Do you want us to take people's gun rates away for the minimal cause and the minimal lives that may be lost because people have guns? It goes back to that exact same argument. I just can't see. I see the outlying risk larger than the punishment. So with that, I'll hand my time over to Abe.
All right. Thank you for that rebuttal. And with that, we're going to give the mic back to Abe. And Abe, whenever you're ready for your uninterrupted rebuttal, I'll start the timer up with your voice.
Okay. So I would say in his opening, also in his rebuttal, he makes reference to the eye for an eye, but there's that saying, an eye for an eye makes the whole world blind. I don't think that we want to go down a route that leaves us with very ineffective means of punishment. I think people will fear greater to live in wallowing anguish for the rest of their days than they will being put to a swift death. It strikes me as odd that you take that stance, because, and then you equivocate it by trying to bring in like the what about the gun laws? If we're going to do one thing this way, then should we do this thing that way? And you even brought up that there is that a system flaw. Well, if it is a system flaw, the fact that it is a system that can be flawed is a problem when it comes to human life. If we are dictating whether or not someone ought live or die, I'd like to know how, as human beings, we can make a flawless system. I don't think it's possible. Also, I would direct the chat as well as Wrath of Reason to Blackstone's Law, and it's based on the Sodom and Gomorrah story. And what we see is that it is better for 10 guilty men to get away than one innocent man be put to death. This is why, biblically, Lot asks if he can find one righteous man. Well, he starts with a huger number, right? And then when it comes to the U.S., it went from 10, and they said it is better that 100 guilty men get away than one innocent man suffer. You see, I think that a system that is willing to say it's an acceptable loss if one innocent dies, so long as we catch all the others. At what point do you have any public trust in that system? If the system could say, well, it's acceptable to lose one innocent person so long as we get the others that are guilty, well, then every innocent person also has to wonder, will I be the one picked up today and put to death illegitimately? And yeah, I think that's it. That's all I got for now.
All right. Thank you for that uninterrupted rebuttal. And with that, we're going to move it over to the hour of open floor for back and forth. Just a quick reminder for everyone in the chat. All right. First off, make sure you go sub up. You can find Abe in the description, and you will be able to find Wrath of Reason there after. As soon as I get it in there. Once the hour is going, I'm going to try and get it in there during that. Also, if you guys have questions for the debaters for the end, we have a 30-minute Q&A after the debate. So I have the live Q&A in the chat. Make sure you get your questions in there, or send it via Super Chat because they will take priority. Super Chats, PayPals, and Cash Apps. And if that fills up the 30 minutes, we may not get to your question. So if you really want to make sure it gets there, send it Super Chat. And just because it supports the show, all right? Also, you got to give these to a big shout out as well for taking this last minute like this. This wasn't pre-planned, and we planned it all in the last 2 hours here. So shout out to them both for doing that. And whenever you guys are ready for the open floor, I will start the timer up with whoever wants to start it off. And again, thank you both for being here.
Thank you.
Perfect. We may as well kick her off. I just kind of keep wanting to touch back on this the system and how it is flawed. So of course, you're always going to have a system that's not perfect. Every system's not perfect, but we already put our trust into that system every day of our life to be correct. And not everybody in a federal prison right now is convicted of that crime either. I understand that their punishment's not death, but for a rare statistic of 1%, I mean, and you could possibly even get that down to 0 if you change the system into the correct ways where there has to be a burden of proof. Let's say a video forensics, there has to be that 100% burden for the death penalty to be instantly committed. And that would probably take away most of that, how do we say that? The cost of the retrials and the dismissals and it shouldn't happen. If there's undeniable proof that you are, let's just get the deed done.
Well, doesn't that well, first of all, you say when a system that we already put our trust in, then we should utilize that system, right? I would ask, don't we dictate what that system can and cannot do, and then we put our trust in the things that we've dictated it can and cannot do?
Yeah, absolutely we do. Yep.
Okay, so if that's the case, then why would we accept and give them the power to take the life of the citizens within the United States if we've dictated that it is meant to protect and defend those very citizens.
At the same time, you're also defending and protecting your citizens if you go through with the death penalty as well, right?
How?
So it can kind of go both ways.
How is putting
I've already
someone...
depicted they could harm another guard. They can harm an inmate while they're in these correction facilities. They can still do harm to the world.
Well, they can do...
Right.
There's a possibility of harm within a penitentiary. There isn't the same harm as they post outside of that penitentiary. I know that there are plenty of ways, once incarcerated, to keep that person from having any real human interaction. Like, they could feed them through slots. They can... I mean, there's plenty of ways where they don't even have access to other human beings. So you say that, but that's an easy fix compared to... and you even brought up escape, which I don't know the last time that that an inmate that's on death row escaped. I don't think that that's even feasible these days.
Yeah, I believe that was. I read a case. I believe it was in the 80s. So it's been a long time, right? So it hasn't happened anytime recently.
So why? Let's see. So you would rather put them to death than have a chance that they may harm another prisoner or a guard?
I'd just rather have them put to death and just not breathing anymore. There's no reason for somebody who's sick and heinous and not right in the mind. There's no reason for that person to be even a part of the society and even have the chance to speak to another person. They've taken the life of another. Why shouldn't the same be done to them?
Well, what's the dictation, do you think, for the death penalty? What dictates whether or not somebody could receive the death penalty as a punishment?
It has to be an absolute heinous crime. So, like I stated in the opening statement there, murder of another person, that is absolutely convicted. Sexual or any kind of extreme acts to a child, we'll put it that way for TOS reasons. And anyone in a prolonged rape situation, so a kidnapping in a prolonged area of time.
So what happens when a more liberal area arrests somebody who takes the life of somebody who is currently doing something heinous to their family, and that person then gets put on death row?
So, that would probably fall under the self-defense laws, wouldn't it?
It depends on the state. It depends on... There's plenty of states that don't even have castle doctrine or stand your ground laws. So if they don't, and then somebody's doing something heinous to your family, and your only option to stop that person is to take their life, and then that state says, well, guess what? That's an unjustified taking of a human life. You didn't even have the right to take their life. Now you are tried as a murder suspect, and you get put to death for protecting your family. And that is completely possible and viable in the country we currently live in.
It is, but it isn't. So, like the system that I'm looking at is something like a heinous murder isn't like a self-defense. You know what I mean? In those where there's that wishy-washy line of it, it has to be a heinous murder. Your first degree murder. You're going out. You're off in that person.
Well, tell me how that's
Right?
not
Premeditated.
Well, tell me how it's not.
Premeditated, right there.
Well, if you end the life of somebody who's doing something heinous, you definitely intend to do that thing. You did it with the intention of taking that life. You fit the bill for what they would call, because that person wasn't taking the life of anyone. They were just doing a heinous crime, and you saw fit to take the life of that person. You see,
and like I said, that would mostly it should. I'm sorry, there shouldn't be a wishy-washy system within the country where the self-defense laws come into play. Like we're going through that in Canada right now, right? Because we're trying to fight the whole thing. If a burglar breaks into your house and you do anything to them, you're held liable for the charges. If it's a self-defense law, it should be it should be black and white. There should be no into the murder. Sexual acts with children, anything of that type of sort. So it's within the system that it needs to be molded and crowned to fit the penalty itself as well, right?
So, okay, for instance, what you're saying currently is we would need to overhaul the entirety of the system in order to do the thing which we're already doing in a flawed manner?
I think the system needs an overhaul in itself already. There shouldn't, excuse me, like the self-defense laws. That's the one that always gets me. I just don't understand how we're so separated that as a country, and how you have different states and provinces that see it differently. It's just it's a systematic flaw.
Yeah, but
1000%.
wouldn't you agree that if there's a chance that any innocent person, or even a person that's committed to self-defense and protecting their family, or just an innocent bystander, could be put to death, don't you think that that system should not have the death penalty?
Yeah, and that's why I believe, like in my opening statement, it's only for these few set crimes that have been committed, like a premeditated murder. You're going out and you're gonna go pew pew somebody, right?
Why do you think that the death penalty cases that we have currently, right, that we've seen throughout the last decade, or even more, 20, 30, 40 years, why do you think most of those trials took us decade or more to even get people into the seat or into death row?
Because in my mind, it's the system's flawed. Because you're allowing people's feeling, they're allowing these people to push that system through. They know how the justice system works. They can use little loopholes within the system to keep pushing that thing out farther and farther and farther. And the lawyers know how to do it, and they've known it for many and many years. And that's how they keep getting away with pushing these trials out longer and longer. And longer.
Sure, but don't you think if the state had all of the evidence and an ironclad case where there was no ifs, ands, or buts, visual data, DNA evidence, that they could put that person on trial and have it done with? They wouldn't have
They
grounds
do,
to
but
push
they
it out
still
over and
have the
over.
exact. They still do it. They still constantly do it. No matter how much proof you have against somebody, there's always these little loopholes they find in the system that can always push it out longer and longer. And that's where, if there is equivocal evidence that 100% you're done, as soon as that gavel hits, you should be walking into the back and get it done with.
Well, so like they have the automatic appeals and all of those things, but beyond the automatic appeals process and all of those, the judge is the one who grants that, right? The judge is the one who's going to grant the stay or the longer period of time for them to gather more intelligence or data in order to fight back against the state. My question would be, how would the judge give more time if there's ironclad evidence? If there was video evidence of the action actually being taken,
Yeah.
and DNA and everything else, then that judge isn't going to grant an
But they
extension
still
of the
have.
case.
They still do.
And why
And
is
it's all
that?
over the justice system. It's the broken system that allows people's feelings to come into a court case. And it's been happening over the last 20 to 30 years. It's been getting worse and worse and worse progressively. The government has allowed people's personal feelings and their bias to come into the courtrooms and judicial system, which should never be allowed. And it's in our constitution that it shouldn't be.
But it is happening.
It is, and the
And
government's allowing it.
So
Well, previous government was allowing it. I
So
should say.
by keeping the death penalty, we're allowing that system to continue to function the way that it does. We're also costing ourselves up to and including $300 million per person who we're going to put to death because of the drawn out caseload, because of the lack of just doing the deed. And then on top of that, the process at the end where it costs a bunch of money to put that all into process. So like, if we have a flawed system that doesn't function the way that it's supposed to, we have a legal system and a judicial system that aren't functioning like they're supposed to, and it's costing the American people millions of dollars per person on death row in order to do it, when we could literally cut that cost down to tens of thousands over the lifetime of the person to keep them incarcerated, why would we do that? What could-
Morality. And why should we just sit here and live with a broken system when we know it's broken? Why not fix the system?
What morality?
Just the morality of an eye for an eye. Like, Even if we take morality out of it, why would we just sit here and live with a broken system and just say, hey, you know what? Instead of fixing the system, let's just put a band-aid on it and just slap her back out there, kid.
Can you tell me which system isn't broken? Which legal and judicial system in the world we live in today is not broken, does not have flaws, does not have issues?
Everything's got flaws, but like I said, over the last 30 to 40 years, everything's been wish-washed into this. People's feelings and their biases are allowed into the courtrooms and political reasons and schooling, and like why we're allowing it is one of the huge problems of society.
Sure, but
Is not standing up and going against these things and just sitting back quietly in the corner, just saying, "Okay, we'll just go with it again."
right. It seems to me that you're saying, yes, the system's broken. Yes, there's not actually a system anywhere in the world that functions. And even if we fix the system, it's still going to have flaws and not function quite the way we want it to, but we should still have the death penalty, even though it doesn't work now, and the system will inevitably be flawed no matter what.
I wouldn't say it doesn't work now. A 1% or a 4% bad chance is that's not a non-functioning system to me. It just says that it's flawed.
A 4%?
Yeah.
That would be 4 people in every 100 are innocent people that we're putting to death.
And it probably happens with people sentenced to life right now. I bet you if we looked it up, the rates would be even higher.
Okay, so to me that just sounds like immorality, not morality. You're saying I'm willing to trade innocent lives to make sure that the guilty are punished.
Of the heinous crimes that I'm directing towards, yes.
You're willing to sacrifice innocent lives to make sure people who commit heinous crimes are punished.
It's not the innocent lives that I'm looking at. It's the other way around.
Well, you have to look at the innocent lives.
You do, but it's always going to be. There's always going to be casualties of anything, right?
No.
No. There's
No,
not casualties to having a car, owning guns, going to war. There's casualties to absolutely everything.
Right. That's.
There's a negative side.
Those are not. How do those? Can you explain to me how those things correlate to being arrested for a crime and incarcerated? How a right to own something is equivocal to being arrested for doing wrong?
Because the chance of you accidentally doing something, even with that thing that you right to own, is still there, probable. You could accidentally shoot somebody and kill them. You could drive into somebody and kill them in your car. It's a casualty. It's a risk that you take in owning that or having that.
That's a completely different thing. That's like saying because people drive cars and there's a chance of them committing violence with that vehicle, I'm going to have to take your wife's life, like my wife's life. Like the police saying, "Oh, we're going to come to your house and we're going to put your wife down because people might crash their cars and hurt other people." Like, how does that?
No, I'm just saying it's a downside of having these things, and the death penalty is just the chance of is very unlikely of which a wrongful case and nowadays would ever happen, right?
Yeah, but you're making a connection, right? You're saying like because people own tools that can do damage to other people, it's like the fact that the justice system might catch the wrong people and put them to death. Like there's a huge disconnect there. Because all of society can choose to use things the way they shouldn't be used, I don't think that overlays onto the justice system being flawed and making mistakes at a 4% rate when it comes to the ending of human life. Is there a logical connection there that I'm missing?
No, I guess not. I'll pull back on that statement. That's no problem. But if there is, so let's move along to why it would be so wrong. If there is 100% undeniable proof that this person has committed that crime, what is wrong with the death penalty at that moment?
Well, first of all, who gets to decide who lives and dies?
Let's say there's a video. There's a video. You watch it. There's a guy on the bus, there's a nice blonde lady sitting on a bus. A guy walks up behind her, stabs her in the throat, and walks away.
Yeah, you put him in a cement box for the rest of his life.
Why does that man deserve to breathe?
What difference does it make if he's alive or dead?
In my mind, it's right there. It comes down to just a personal moral justification, or
Vengeance. You want vengeance.
I wouldn't call it vengeance, but I honestly don't see anything wrong with it. If you are the ones that commit that crime and you can be taken out of this world to never be able to do that crime again, so be it.
But you could be
I
locked in a
just don't see
cement
it.
box for the rest of your life and not have the ability to do the same thing. So how is ending a human life rather than putting them in a box more moral? Which I don't. I'm trying
How
to
is
make a
putting
connection
somebody
here.
in a box and keeping them alive for 30 years, never able to talk to somebody? How is that moral?
Well, they committed a crime. They took a
Yeah.
human life, and so now they don't get to be around humans.
And if you put them to death, they could be around no humans.
Well, sure, but you're also ending their life. You're not giving them any chance at anything else in the rest of that time. You're ending their life prematurely. And I understand where you're coming from, saying because they've ended a life prematurely, their life should be ended prematurely. But that is only you looking for blood, because
Okay.
other blood has been spilled, and I don't know by which metric can you say this thing is more moral than this thing when it comes to putting somebody in a box for the rest of their life or taking their life from them permanently.
All right. So now let's shift a little bit off just the murder part of this, or the killing part of this. So let's move into like the heinous acts against a child, or the kidnapping and enslaving of a certain person, and let's go from there. So now that person is a victim, and you don't think that that person's not sitting at home every day of their life, sitting there thinking, this man is still out there. He's still somewhere out there. It doesn't matter if he's locked in a cell. There's a chance that that man could get out. And justify it in their mind, once that deed is done, there's no chance for the boogeyman to come back.
So you think it would be better for that person to be tried repeatedly over the course of 30, 40 years before they ever get put to
No.
death, and the person who suffered gets to see that on the news, that person's name spread all over the place, and then the chance that copycats come out and do the same thing, which has happened multiple times over the last 40 years, where somebody is arrested and put on death row, and then people go and emulate the exact crimes that they committed because it's now on the television, on the news, and people are talking about it. You think that's better? You think that's better than locking that person up and putting their name out of the system? Nobody talks about it. They're just gone in a box for the rest of their life. You think that dragging
The
the person through
equivocal
the
part of
mud-
that system, dragging through the system, that's going to happen no matter what. Either which way, if you're with that serious of a case, it's going to go just as long in court as the death penalty, anyways.
You
No matter what,
you think
right? If
no,
it's
no,
that type of a case,
no. If they've been found guilty at that
in
point,
which where the system is flawed now, so we're back to the flawed system.
will they
There should be
sensationalize?
no
That's the
chance.
problem.
They shouldn't, as long as if there's irrefutable proof, say they have the DNA, they have irrefusable proof that that person has committed that crime, then they should be put to death, and that would relieve that person, that child's mind that has to sit there and live knowing that that person's still in this world.
Well, that child won't be a child anymore. They'll be 40 years
Exactly.
old by the time that person's on death row. So their
But you don't think that
entirety
still
of their
affects
young
them?
life has now been dragged through the court cases, the news talking
But that's where
about
I'm
it,
saying the system's flawed. It doesn't need to be dragged through. If there's irrefusable proof that the crime has been committed, that act needs to be done right after. Not going 20 years down the road.
Well, then at that point, it sounds like your stance is we should not have the death penalty until the system is fixed.
And unless there is irrefutable proof, if there's irrefutable proof that there should be a death penalty, if there's DNA, 10 witnesses, videotapes, if you know that that crime was committed by that person,
What does irrefutable proof look like to you?
So you've got DNA,
Mhm.
you've got video,
Mhm.
you've got the trials of very lawful people. So if you've got 2, 3 witnesses and the
Great.
victim,
If I take locks of your hair and I leave it in a place, will it show up that that's your hair if they test it?
see, now you're going down this road. That's where it's questionable. I'm not talking about framing. I'm not talking about the other things of what
Can I
could happen.
generate video footage of you
That would be
committing acts
non-irrefutable
without you
proof.
being there?
Not if me killing someone, no.
How do you know? I can't go online, use AI to make it look like you did this act, and then leave some of your hair at the scene of the crime and
You
walk
can
away?
still tell where a video came from by the dynamics of where, like, the way it's created. You can go into that video and tell that it's made by an AI.
Not always. And even at that, regardless of that, right? What I'm saying is you say irrefutable proof, and I would say I don't think that line is as clear as you do. I don't think anyone knows where irrefutable is. I would say you would have to be there witnessing it, and at that point you should have stopped it then. I don't think you can have enough evidence for it to be irrefutable unless you witnessed it with your own 2 eyes.
And what happens when people around it don't stop that act?
Well, at the very least, then you have eyewitness testimony. But
What if they don't want to testify?
welcome to the flawed system that probably
But what
shouldn't
if
be
there's a
putting
video?
people to death.
You know what I mean? I just, if there is irreversible proof, I just don't see the issue with it. If there is a line that there is possibly a chance no, then maybe not. But that's no reason to abolish the whole system just because there is some
Okay.
kind of irrefutable proof.
Can you outline in some way the rationale that putting them to death is the right choice rather than ending their life without killing them by locking them up? Where's the line? Like, why is one better than other? Why is the ending of the life the right choice and the locking them up not the right choice?
Just for, like I said, morally for the victims, for one. They should not have the right to breathe afterwards.
Right, but if you go and look at testimony from victims, they'll say that it made it worse watching the cases over the course of the years prior. And by the
But that's-
time you get to the
that should
end, where they may have already forgiven and moved on, now they're putting someone to death, and they get to have that on their conscience in some way, shape, or form. So, like,
But the system shouldn't take 10, 20 years to put somebody to death. It should not.
but it does.
If you're found guilty, it should.
But
Sorry,
it does.
adios.
But it
Los-
does, and
Los
you're
pelos.
arguing for we should have the death penalty, and the system functions that way currently. So either we don't
Yeah,
have the
but-
penalty until the system works the way that it ought to, or you just keep doing it with the 4%.
But even if we
mistake
did
rate.
that, right? Even if we did delay it until the system isn't flawed, we're still not removing the death penalty. So it is still a viable fact.
What do you
So
mean?
you're still not taking the topic itself is, should we have the death penalty as a punishment, right?
Yeah.
So at that point, you're still bringing it back at a different point. So it's not abolishing that. That's not abolishing the death penalty, right? You're still bringing it back even once the system's finally fixed.
Well, no, my point would be that we're humans and we are flawed. And by that, any system we create is also going to have flaws, which means you will never design a perfect system that justifies using the death penalty as a punishment.
Like I'm saying, with irrefutable proof, that takes away that element of mistake. If you have a video, I hate
In
bringing it.
order
I'm
to
going
do
to bring.
that, then we need a full-blown police state with cameras everywhere to make sure that every single crime is caught. in
Well,
which
no,
case-
but not everybody's facing the death penalty, right? Only certain ones, like let's say serial killers, you know, child traffickers,
I just okay. So I'm having trouble.
pedophiles.
I'm having trouble understanding
Especially
how you
pedophiles.
justify keeping a system, the death penalty system, in place so long as it can make the mistake of putting innocent people to death. Because your federal government literally has a job to protect and defend the people of, or the citizens of the United States, in this case, the United States. And if its job is to protect and defend those people from foreign and domestic threats, and you are that threat, then you have broken your duty to the American people and you're a failed government at that point. Now public trust is gone, and we're left with a system that's flawed enough that it can kill whoever it wants, whenever it wants, however it wants, and you just justify it because we gave them the right to.
Yeah, with if you take the, like I said, if you take the doubt or liability or any chance of it not being a rightful conviction out, then that percentage would be 0. It wouldn't be 4%.
Right, but you're saying
Right.
irrefutable evidence, right? I
Yeah.
would bet you that in death row cases, the irrefutable proof portion of them is less than 1% compared to the 4% of innocents we're putting to death now. If that is the case,
I would say not
that-
to that, no.
really,
I mean, you've only got 4% of all cases that are going wrong. So it's, yeah, sorry, brain's shutting down here. You see, you have a gun, fingerprints, you have a victim, you know the person was there. You have, let's say, 3 eyewitnesses saying that they were there. You have all the proof. What's wrong with taking care of it at that point?
well,
What's wrong with it?
would be that's I think that's a fool's errand, because there's any number of things that could be wrong with that situation. They could be false prints. Somebody else could have been holding the gun prior and then they could have used it. Somebody else could have used it. You don't know. The DNA evidence, like I said, could be planted at any time. We've seen this at crimes where things have been planted and then later found out that that was the case.
So these are cases. Okay, so
Like-
what I'm trying to get at is if there is a case with 100% irrefutable evidence, what is wrong with the death penalty?
Well, first of all, you're putting a human life to end rather than doing
To somebody who's already
justice.
taken justice is taking that person's life, but now we're into whose morals or who thinks what is right. Like in society over thousands of years since we became a society, the death penalty has been a thing.
I'm still trying to understand
So-
what moral grounding gives you it should be death rather than locked up for life.
What moral grounding do you have that you should be locking somebody in a cage instead of taking their life?
Because you shouldn't be taking human life.
Well, maybe you shouldn't be locking them in a cage. Maybe they shouldn't have the right to breathe once they take another person's life or commit that heinous of a crime.
Do you as a citizen of the United States have the right to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness?
No, I live in Canada.
Okay.
I just get screwed on the daily.
Well, we have the right to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. If you have the right to life, then why does the government supersede your right to life? The one
I
thing
don't-
that's supposed to protect that right has the ability to take that.
There was a way around this. Once you deliberately take somebody's life or do that heinous of a crime, I don't believe you are now a citizen, and I don't believe you're even human. To commit the kind of acts that we're talking about, like you would have to be your mind isn't right. You're a sociopath at that point. You are not a human with who deserves any kind of rights.
Again, you're making a leap here, right? Because, like I said before, the state could dictate that you have committed murder even though you were defending an innocent bystander or protecting your own home.
But now you're looping it off to another thing. Like I'm saying, if there is irrefutable evidence that you are a serial killer, you are a rapist, you are a child trafficker, irrefutable evidence of that. I've never said that we should just, if there's no evidence, then just, ship them
Okay,
off
but
to the
you've
old
still not
chamber,
explained.
right?
You've still not explained as the affirmative why it's better to take the life of that person rather than to just put them in a cage for the rest of their life. Like, why
At the
is it
same
better?
point, at the same point, so if we had the justice system that was correct, it wouldn't cost extra money. So what's the point of not doing it? If the justice system was correct and only did it off these few bases, you wouldn't have the drawn out thing and with the money that you were talking about.
But
And
that's my point.
bring in that's the drawn out part. So you take that money part out of there. What's wrong with now? It's costing us money to keep these people alive.
We already spend far more than that, and you're saying if the system was better, well, the system's not better, and there's nowhere at all that the system functions better than it does here, and here the 4% mistake rate is happening. So if we're the best and nowhere else is capable, and you're saying we just need to be better than we already are and we're the best, then how exactly do you ever reach what you're stating? Like, there, I don't.
You take the 4% out by irrefutable evidence. It has to be proven. Like if there's a video,
But that still
I'm going to
doesn't
put it up
solve-
again. So we have a video of a lady sitting on a bus. Guy walks up, shanks her.
Yeah.
Should that man have the right to breathe?
Why
Again,
is it better to take his life than to put him in a cage?
why should we even have a drawn out course system like we have? Why should we pay money for that man to stay alive for the rest of his life?
Again, we're already paying 2, 3, and sometimes 10
No,
times
we're not.
that.
If the system was correct,
The system is not
if
correct.
we have that video showing exactly what happened, why should that man have the right to breathe when he took another person's?
He should be segregated off from all of society, but we don't have the right to take the life of another human being.
He should be segregated, but he's not. He's sitting in a cell right now with a bunch of other people in a wing. He's not sitting by himself. It's not 100% seclusion.
Right. Is there going to
confined
be
seclusion?
Is there going to be automatic appeals for him if they're seeking the death penalty? Is there going to be automatic appeal systems because of the way that our
There
justice
shouldn't be.
system currently works? Is there going to be though?
For that, I don't believe. No, I don't think you can get around that one.
I think there'll still be
I
appeals.
think his lawyers will try to, right? But
There'll
that's
still be
the problem with
appeals.
the system.
They'll still try to seek insanity of some type. They can do all kinds of routes where they're going to draw this out. And if that is the case, then they're going to charge up more than it would take to just hold him, to just keep him in a cell.
That's where I always say that's where I think a lot of other people's with the same belief that I do is just why even keep him there? Why have him? He shouldn't have the chance to appeal. He shouldn't have a chance to claim insanity. I don't care what your state of mind was at that moment. You just don't walk up to somebody on a bus, slap him with a knife, and then just chant and walk away.
Sure, but as it currently stands, regardless of what we want it to be, it is going to be a drawn out process. If you want to stop that man from breathing, that process is now years, if not decades out, with all the pay of all the people involved.
Okay, so we fix the system, everything's good. Once again, death penalty. Why is it wrong? If it's not going to cost extra money at the end, why is the death penalty wrong if you have irrefutable evidence that person did it?
Because human life has value.
No, that person shouldn't. They've already taken one,
Well, then,
or they've taken a lot of other people's lives away from them as well. We could say that.
I
Or
would
there's
say
people that have to live with that have to sit at home in the mental state knowing that that person is still alive and breathing in this world.
See, I don't know
Let's
what
just say that's a child,
I
right?
don't know what your founding documents state, but ours says we find these truths to be self-evident, right? And so if they are self-evident truths that we have the right to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, then you don't actually have the right to take human life of a citizen who's a part of something that has a fundamental truth that you have the right to live. So there has to be some value by which you're saying we can morally
Now, so-
supersede what we find to be true by its very nature.
So if you have the right to happiness, would the person that has to know that that person's still alive, isn't that taking away from their
You have
happiness?
the pursuit of happiness, not the right to be happy.
I guess so, right? But
You have the right to pursue happiness, to pursue property, basically. So, but the question is, if we have these rights, and they are self-evident that we have the right
Not
to
not the
life.
whole world. Not everybody lives off those rights, but at the same time, it's just I don't know. That's where it's a wishy-washy slope, right? Because it all comes down to your morals and how you feel about that situation, right? So half America thinks it's good, and half America thinks it's bad. So
So
it's
I
I
don't.
can't prove to you why not to, and you can't prove to me why, right? So it's kind of one of those topics. It's always going to be a battle forever.
I mean,
right,
we could
on
take
one of these ones.
we could take a religious route, but I don't think that you're
Mm.
primarily religious, and I don't think that that's going to help those who are not
No.
of a religious ilk. So the question would be,
Yeah.
by what standard does one thing good and other thing not as good make? Or like where's that line for you? Why is one thing good and another thing not good? Like putting to death is good in your scenario. Putting in cage is not as good. And I'm saying putting them in the cage and making them suffer for the rest of their life, so they actually have to think about it, live with it for the rest of their life. They have to reconcile the things that they have done while not having the rights to be out in public, while not having the rights to build a family and build a life and have freedom. Those things are now gone. And they're stuck in a dwelling, living with the things that they did.
Your mic's roboting, Abe.
Did that fix it?
There you go.
Okay. So if they have to reconcile or they have to feel the weight of the things that they've done for the next 30, 40, 50, 60 years, whatever it is, how is that not more punishment than cutting it off right there?
Because a lot of the people that commit these crimes don't think they're doing anything wrong. They're just like a complete sociopath. They have no feelings and no compassion for others, right? So they're just going to live life like they don't care. They're just going to live life like jolly. They're in their little cage and be happy in their little play world, right? To them, it's not. They're not committing something wrong.
They're going to be
A lot of
happy
these
in their
people.
play world, which is a cement box with a toilet and a slot for food.
It could be. Hey man, maybe they're good at daydreaming, right? So, uh, yeah, like they're not. They're a lot of them aren't going to be sitting there thinking about these things for the rest of their lives because they don't have those empathy and those feelings.
Okay.
And that's completely proven that these people are just absolutely. They have no feelings.
I mean, I don't know that that's
They have no
completely
regard for
proven. I
regard.
know that people have mental illnesses and issues, but I don't think that it's proven that they don't have any.
Complete sociopath. Really, you look at a guy like Charles Manson, right? He had no empathy for what he did.
Something like antisocial personality disorder definitely could be at play for things like this, but again, that still doesn't change the product of why, like, you even if you delete the part of they have to live with what they've done and they have to struggle with themselves in that cell, you're at the very least now still restricting their ability to go out and do what they want to do, to go out and live a life outside of those walls. You've now taken what is valuable to them from them. There's no procreation. There's no going and getting to make the foods they love. There's no, like, you're still denying them the pleasures of life for an extended amount of time, which is still greater suffering than just ending it right now.
I believe, like I said, if the system isn't flawed and everything works, then with the undeniable proof, why even give them the chance to live out those 30 years? Why even give them any chance to have any kind of, maybe they like being in prison for some reason. Why give them even the chance to have that kind of joy? If they've already removed somebody's life or done
what does it
unspeakable acts
benefit
to another
us?
person.
Like, even if we took that and said, fine, we'll make them work. At least they're going to pay their way for the rest of their time in a prison cell. We're going to slide paper mache in, and they have to build things for the rest of their days. Every single day they have to do it, and if they don't, then they have to, get some other form of punishment. Like, then they have to earn whatever it is that takes to keep them alive for the rest of their life while they're imprisoned. Like,
But then at the same point, you go back to the families and the victims of these things, knowing that that person's still out there. Like that's
Well-
one of the that's one of the moral things that I just can't get by. Like if this person who's
How's
been
that-
through some stuff and having friends that have been through some stuff, just that knowing the act of that person's still out in the world is very traumatic towards them. So why don't they deserve the justice knowing that that person's no longer breathing?
well, they're not out in the world, and if you convicted them of a life sentence with no chance of parole, then
That doesn't help their mindset.
how?
Because in their mindset, they're still out there. They're still afraid of that boogeyman. They know that that person is still out there. When that life ends, they know that that person's no longer out there.
That person's not out there, though. That person is locked up, and there's
There's still a ch-
documentation, and there's
There may be a minimal chance, but there's always a chance that that person could get out. And that's not going to help that
You think
person's
that
mind
that's-
that's sitting in there that can't sleep for days and weeks on end because they
Did-
know that that person's still out there, right?
Did you find evidence of that or something when you were looking at people that suffered some kind of catastrophic violence?
No, I
or
actually
something
know.
like that?
I know a
'Cause-
person that has that problem.
Okay, well,
They can't sleep at night. They have nightmares every night.
and you think taking a
You
human
know?
life is going to cure them
For
of
that person,
trauma
yes,
that-
it
that they-
would because they know that that person still can't come back and create another harness crime. As much as the minimal chance maybe was
Well,
0.0001%, but that still scares that person enough to know that they're still in the world.
Ending, okay, I understand what you're saying, but ending a human life doesn't delete the trauma or the thing that person has undergone either. So, like, yeah, you could say they might feel better, although in your case, somebody that feels that way. The other person obviously hasn't been put down, so you can't say what they're going to feel after the fact. You can only say
But
that
it's
you
the chance that it
believe
can
that
still
they
happen
would.
again, knowing that they're still out there.
But that fear is founded on a trauma that exists because of an event, not because the person
Mhm.
is still there.
Yeah.
So
So that's where this is where we're taking away from the murder thing, right? So we're talking about heinous crimes,
Sure,
acts against children, acts against people and their families.
sure. And I'm not saying that we couldn't do other things. Like, you could make somebody into a eunuch and put them in a freaking jail cell so they'll never feel those feelings ever again, and they're stuck in a prison cell for the rest of their lives. You could even push it beyond that, but at what point? Again, I still don't understand why the life ending is better than a jail cell is. Like,
Yeah, and
you-
I'm
you-
the
you
exact
made-
same thing,
you
but
made
I'm
the
the opposite
connection
way.
that it was moral, but I don't see a line
I wouldn't
where
say it's
one is
just
moral.
Moral, like either way, you have your own morals, right? So it's kind of an unwavering line that you can't cross. So we can sit here and argue, we're just putting our points across, because I don't think any point in any time will there ever be a set way where everybody is one way, right? So
But if you're saying
it's
that,
just a
then
hard thing to.
at that point you're just saying all of our morals are subjective, so we should just do whatever it is the victims that we're associated with it want, because it's subjective, and if they want that thing done, then we should do that thing. So,
Not necessarily.
I mean,
Everybody's morals are differing, right? And even religious beliefs, each different religious belief has different sets of morals that don't agree. Like there are, I think it's a matter, I would say most of religious fractions actually are just non-concisive on the death penalty. They don't have an opinion. They don't think it's bad or they don't think it's good, right? I believe it's like 2 or 3 places around the world that are pro for it, and just some of the minor churches
I think that there's
as well,
plenty that believe
are on
that
it.
that death would be deserved, but that doesn't mean that you ought inflict it, right? So, like, you could talk to a whole bunch of people and say, do you think this person would deserve to be put to death? And they'll say yes, but that doesn't mean that we should allow the state to put people to death.
That's where the state, yeah. But if there's undeniable proof and you know it's happened, that's not really the state. That's just a stated fact that it's happened.
Okay, so
Right.
what's the threshold for undeniable fact that it happened?
You have videotape. You can tell that it has happened. No matter which way you look at it, it has happened. You have videotape. You have 500 witnesses. You have the person sitting in the chair saying that that's the person who did it. There's undeniable proof. So it can exist. Undeniable proof can exist. And it happens 96% of the time, and 4% of the time they're wrong, right? So, which is, I don't really play with that fact because that's just, yeah.
Do you think all
you're
people
taking it.
all people that get the death penalty are unrecoverable in every possible way? That there's no way to rehabilitate somebody as long as they're on death row? They're on death row because they're
Depending on the
unfixable,
crime.
period.
Just depending on the crime, right? Do I think, let's put it this way, do I think a pedophile should ever have the chance to even have a right to refute himself? No. You should just be put down like a dog. You're gone. You shouldn't have that second chance. So why would we give somebody with that mental state? And it's proven all over the internet that those people are about 80% chance to redo their punishment, I guess. Sorry, to recommit.
Yeah, okay. So again, that still doesn't, like, none of it actually shows me why. Okay, they're going to recommit so long as they're able to be in public of some kind, right?
Mhm.
So you keep them from ever being in public again. And you're saying it's better
Or
to
you
put them
just end their
down.
life. Yeah. Because either which way, it doesn't really matter. They're alive or they're not. They're not committed. They're not contributing to society. They're doing nothing but taking up a cell.
Right,
in
but
the
I
prison.
feel like I feel like you never contended with the fact that innocents are going to be put down. Instead, you jump to a fantasy world where if the system
There is not a
worked the way-
fantasy world when there's undeniable proof. If you have DNA and undeniable proof,
but that's not how it works right now.
That's not how it works right now.
So you're
But it
saying
does
in a
in some
fantasy
cases.
world
That's not
where
in the
that's how it
fantasy world.
worked.
Does the topic say, is the death penalty good right now? No.
Should we allow the death,
death
penalty
penalty.
as a punishment?
Yeah. It doesn't say now. It doesn't say past or future. It's just saying that should we allow it? And I'm saying yes, if there's undeniable proof, we should allow it.
I still don't understand why it should be and not jail cells or a desert island or
Because then we're wasting space and our valuable oxygen in the air that they're breathing up. Just get rid of them.
what?
I don't want to breathe my oxygen. Certain types of people.
Well, as it stands right now, I would say, and not just right now, because all of the past, and we don't have access to the future because we can't be in the future. We're here now, but we can access history and record of the past and the current moment. And in both the past and the current moment, we've made mistakes and taken the lives of innocent people in lieu of catching guilty or punishing guilty people. And so long as it's happened in the past and in the present, then it will continue into the future, in my opinion. And I don't think it's worth us putting people to death by our own vain judgment, regardless.
But if, like I'm saying, it's kind of like beating a dead horse here. But in the past and in the future, we didn't go off the basis in an undeniable proof. There has to be 100% undeniable proof that that person has committed that crime.
Right, and like I said, I don't. Where's the line for undeniable proof? And you say video evidence, but video evidence can be false or faked, and
It really can't at this time, even with the AI. It cannot be. You can tell altered film just by breaking it down and looking at it. Certain people with skills can look in and tell anytime a video or anything has been monitored, you can tell where there's breaks within that,
well,
that monitoring.
that's in the data, which the data can be changed when doing video of any kind. Like, you could take a very sophisticated coder and make it look like that is traditional normal footage. And the thing I have with this is, like, you keep saying undeniable proof. Well, then that's like 1% or less of all the crimes that happen that are of this nature. And you're saying, yeah, in those cases we should do it, but that doesn't solve for all the rest of the cases that the same exact action is being taken. And so then you're
But
still
with a
breaking.
system that works,
Well, no,
right,
then you're
if you
still
had a
breaking public trust, because at
if
that
you
point,
had a
you're
system that
saying
worked,
if you don't have
what's wrong with the
irrefutable,
death penalty?
well, you're saying if you don't have irrefutable evidence, then the death penalty is not on the table for you. And we're only going to do it for these people over here. So some families get justice and the rest of the people don't get justice because they don't have irrefutable evidence. And by your own metric, that's justice for those families. So
So
more
why not have
like
both options?
98 or 99% are not going to ever get justice. They're just going to have to suffer through.
I wouldn't
And
say
then the
that,
1% that are going to get justice for the crimes that have irrefutable evidence are going to wait. At this
they're
point,
not going to wait.
I
If
don't-
the system was correct, they're not waiting.
you keep saying if the system was correct, but the system has never
Mhm.
been that.
And that's the systematic flaw. That's not the flaw of the punishment, right? That's not the death penalty's fault that the system's not correct.
My argument
So
is
it
that,
doesn't take it away from like what's wrong with the death penalty
why
if
do you
it's
think we have all
100%
those
right.
safeguards? Why do you think we have all those safeguards that are drawing out all of these punishments? Why do you think those safeguards exist?
Because there is some chances of it being wrong.
Because in our founding documents and in our legal system, we believe that human life has value, and we ought not take human life if there's could be a mistake. And so they're trying to extend that out. So long
Yeah.
as we value human life, why should we be ending human life? And why should the
But
government?
that just brings it back to the irrefutable proof. If there is irrefutable proof, what is wrong with the death penalty? So why not
What
have
is
both?
wrong with putting them in a jail cell?
Why should they have the right to breathe? Why should the victim's family have to live knowing that that person still? Why should the victim still know that that person's still breathing and alive? Why are the victim's family of people who they killed have to sit there and know that that person's alive? Why should they?
Why should they have
When
to
that
be
life has
offended?
been,
Why
if
should,
they've
I mean,
taken
like,
their, if let's say somebody takes somebody's child's life,
Mhm.
they're caught red-handed. They have the weapon in their hands. The law enforcement shows up. Even the judge is standing there and sees this person off that person. What is wrong with putting that person down?
you're ending human life.
What's wrong with that if he's already taken that chance into his own hands and ended somebody else's?
Well, by our own documents,
He's taken that chance for that person to live away. So what's wrong with taking that person's chance of life away?
no, he didn't take their chance of life away. He took their life away.
Yeah, sorry, he took their
They
life away.
ended the life of that person.
So what's wrong with taking that person's life?
Well, if it was the person in the moment taking that life in self-defense, it's a lot different, isn't it?
Let's say it wasn't self-defense. Let's say everybody was standing there and watched it happen.
No, I'm
He
saying,
just took that person's life.
no, what I'm saying is, if you caught that person and ended them, that would be self-defense and it would be okay. But because you weren't there to stop it, no one was there to stop it, and now you're building a case against that person, then the answer isn't for the state to have the power to put its own citizens to death. The answer is you jail them and make them suffer forever until they pass. You don't give the state the right to kill its own citizens, because That's blood for blood, and you just continue to build a system where it's okay for your state, your government, to take the lives of its own people.
Only in extreme circumstances. We're not giving this out to freaking drug dealers and
Really?
we're not.
Because we've seen it in other countries, and it's
That-
even been
that's
talked
not
about
what-
in ours.
That's not what I'm fighting for. And then that's what the title says: is should we abolish it correctly, or should we just make a system that works for it? Why abolish it correctly if you can make a system that works for it?
Because, again, going back to founding documents, you have the right to life, and the
You also have
government's
the right to not
duty-
take other people's lives.
That's not a right. That's a law, and you're supposed to take the duty upon yourself not
so if
to.
you have a right to life and somebody takes that away from you, you never had that chance. So the person who took it should be the one that has to pay for that life.
To who? To the state? You have to
Whoever
pay
they
your
go
life
to.
the state,
Whether they go
on
up or
behalf
down.
of the family. Like, I don't.
If there's like I said, if there's undeniable proof of how this has happened, and it has happened, and they're convicted, and they know that that person did it, I don't see the issue with it.
Because this is like the most extreme line you could cross for the federal government's actions. You're giving
Yes,
the
but that
government the
person
right
chose
to end the life
to
of.
go across those lines and take somebody's life or do those heinous crimes to somebody. They chose to do that act.
Do you not see
not
a
the
difference
government.
between the state's actions and people's actions?
But the people's actions would be proving the state to be able to do it, right?
No. That's not.
Do the
that's
people
the
not vote
clear-
in their government?
They do, but the state doesn't have the right to supersede all rights of citizens, right? You can't just take all the rights away.
But they're
Can
not
you?
taking. You're not really taking a right away from somebody who is in that state of mind. I don't think they're even a human. They're not even. They shouldn't even have.
Okay, but
Yeah,
that's an opinion
that's-
you're making, right?
That's a lot of people's thoughts, right? And that's what everybody's opinion is. Your opinion is that there's a 4% chance that this could go wrong, or there's no way we could have an undeniable evidence.
Well, there's multiple reasons, right? For my moral founding, that person is also created in the image of God, and I don't think you should take the life of any other human. I think that vengeance is the Lord's, not mine. But beyond
It's
that,
even
I
written
don't
in your
think
Bible that you can
give-
take that person's life.
It's written. I'm not going to go there with you, actually.
I know. I know, but it is actually written in there to a certain extent. It's very gray, and that's where the area is. This is always going to be a gray topic for everybody, right?
I mean, I don't think it's morally gray for a huge portion of people because they don't believe it's right to take the life of human beings at all.
I don't know if it's a huge portion. I believe the last time the poll was done, I think it's 56% of North America.
So
People believe in the death penalty.
just over half. I would say that's
Yeah.
a pretty big number. Just under half
Which
of the
is-
people believe that you shouldn't. That's a pretty big
Exactly,
number.
right? So it's right there. It's not one lit swaying one way or the other. So how do you adjust that? Just by going off people's feelings. So why not have both? If you
Well-
have people's feelings, take those out of the way. So now you have both systems in place, and the only way it can happen is undeniable proof that somebody did those heinous crimes.
Undeniable proof. Again,
Like I said, if there's 5 people standing in a room and they watch somebody do it,
I know, but you're going to
Boom,
like
you know
the
somebody did
most
it.
extreme stance for one
But there's a
individual
chance that-
person. And I would say there has to be a standard, right? And if the standard is so excessive, then everyone knows this new standard and no one does any of that stuff.
or it just
They don't
shows
make-
right
they
on a
make
videotape
sure that
somebody
they're
walking up
clever.
and stabbing them.
If you don't
They
think
know
that
what
people can
happens.
just overcome the standard that you're now setting that doesn't currently exist, then I don't know what to tell you. Like,
But like, I'm just gonna throw it out because we only got a few seconds left. The topic isn't whether or not is it right, is it wrong, it is should we abolish the death penalty, right? So if the system is right and everything's not flawed, why not? Just because somebody's feelings, right?
All right, that's gonna wrap up the hour of the back and forth, and we're gonna move it over into closing statements. All right. Remember, chat. First off, big shout out to the debaters for coming out last minute and doing this. Excuse me, sorry. And doing this. So make sure you go show the debaters some support, okay? Also, after the closing statements, we're going to get into the 30-minute Q&A. So if you got questions, drop them in the Q&A. We only got a few super chats, so we'll have time for the Q&A. So get some questions in the Q&A because we got 30 minutes for that, and then we're gonna do an hour after panel because I almost forgot I have an appointment in the morning, so I have to go to sleep a little earlier today than I normally do. Yeah, but. With that, we're going to get into closing statements. Wrath of Reason, you're going to go first, so that'll give Abe the last word. So, Wrath of Reason, whenever you're ready for your closing statement, I'll start the timer up with your voice.
Okay. Where do I go from here? Once again, shout out to Abe. Yeah, we didn't have much time. Didn't have really any time to prepare for this debate, but here we are. Just coming down to the death penalty. Like I said, it's in the title of whether we should abolish it or not, or if we should have it as a punishment. I believe, and I believe a lot of people believe, that if there is unrefutable proof that that person has committed that crime, just like you can say it the opposite way, what is wrong with that situation? Is it moral or isn't it moral? But if, depending on which way you stand, you're always going to have a different moral on that situation. Best case scenario, I'd say you leave them both in, and as long as you have undeniable proof that a crime is being committed into that heinous of an act, I don't see why the victims or the family's victims should have to live with the consequences of that person being able to breathe and even have the chance at life when they've already decided to either take somebody's away or shatter theirs for the rest of their life, right? Don't really have much on top of that, so I'll concede my time on over to Abe. And yeah, thanks for coming on out, Abe.
All right, thank you for that closing statement. And with that, we're gonna hand the mic over to Abe. And Abe, whenever you're ready for your closing statement, I'll start the timer up with your voice.
Okay. So I would say that people do things quite often, and it affects us, and we don't always get recompense for the things other people do that affect our lives. I don't think that you balance the scales by taking the life of another person for them taking the life of a different person. I think all you're left with in that case is empty scales, not a balanced scales, just nothing left. I think there is a certain level of slippery slope to taking human life via the state. I would say if you look back at this debate in the beginning, my opponent did say that he felt like it was moral and right to punish that person via the death penalty for what they had committed against the person and the person's family. So I tried to figure out what makes it more moral to take the life of that person, or right to take the life of that person, than to just jail them or house them forever. Again, I went over the costs that we are seeing currently and have in the past seen for these things. And we also have the rate of mistakes being made, and there's definitely very many of them where, again, they didn't find that proof that it wasn't them until after the fact. Some they found right before, and there was a saving grace, but many of them, they found it after the fact. And so you get absolved of the crime, but sorry, you lost your life because the state makes mistakes. I don't think that the state is evil, but I don't think that the state is perfect either. And so, absent a perfect system that doesn't make mistakes in taking the lives of innocents, I can't trust the system to take the lives of any man. And I don't see how a state that's tasked to protect its citizenry should be taking the lives of its citizenry. So, with that, I will give my time back.
All right. Thank you for that closing statement, Abe. With that, we're gonna get over to the 30-minute Q&A. But before we, what the hell? Before we start the 30-minute Q&A, I like to usually ask a question or two for each side, based off maybe some of the things I heard, or maybe an argument I just want them to repeat again. For we'll start on the pro death penalty side. So if justice, right, is the goal, um, how do you justify the irreversible punishment when it is a wrongful conviction? Like, even though they are rare, um, how do we justify that if when a wrongful death sentence is given out?
That's kind of where I kind of keep saying that throughout the debate is we have to adjust the system so that it can't be a possibility, right? You have to have proof, like 100% proof that it has happened, and then that justifies that penalty. That's kind of where I can go with that. You can't justify the taking of other people's lives. It might be a little bit of a casualty, but at the same time, you can't justify taking somebody's life wrongly when they haven't committed that act.
Okay, Abe, did you have something
Innocent
for that?
person, I should say. Yeah.
The one thing I would say on that topic is what happens. In my mind, obviously, I can't tell you for sure, but if it comes down to you have to have irrefutable proof for every time that you wanted to try to utilize this system, you're letting a lot of people slip through the cracks at that point. You're saying, I need 100% proof, and then we'll make sure that this thing happens. Then all the times you don't have proof, people get away with it. Why wouldn't you just have the punishment be the same? And then if there's any chance that person didn't, they could still have a life after.
But you could use that in the opposite way, where you could still have your life sentence is always going to be your mandatory sentence. But if the case is that you cannot refute that person did that, what's wrong with the death penalty?
Well, in one case, you just have life in prison. In the other case, you have death. Mm-hmm. So if somebody who's innocent is found guilty and then later found not guilty, they still have life to live after that. But if they were found guilty and put to death, they have no life to live after that.
But you're taking with only allowing it in certain cases, you're allowing it to only be in those cases that it cannot be refuted that person committed that act.
But that's my point. My point is, if you don't even have the proof to put them to death, then you also don't have the proof for a life sentence. So it can't be both, or it has to be like one or the other. You can't hold them for life if you're not sure they did it. Just like you can't put them to death if you're not sure they did it. So at that point, you're like saying, well, in these cases, we're going to put them to death. And in these cases where we're not quite sure, we're just going to keep them for the rest of their life.
There's the difference between saying, yeah, I think we know he did it, or we know he 1000% did it. And depending on the heinous of the crime, if you can prove that it happened, then I honestly don't see the problem with it.
All right. Then so for my second question here, I think Abe kind of touched on it there earlier, and so like with a lot of studies that suggest that there isn't a like a rise in the deterrence of violent crime when it comes to capital punishment. If deterrence isn't a proven thing, what is like the strongest like moral or practical justification that remains for the death penalty after deterrence?
Sorry, I'm just trying to compute. Like I said, it's hard to go off morals because there's so many different morals in the world, right? It's the only thing, like I said, I could justify any kind of retribution, which is where that kind of goes towards this, not revenge, the retribution for the families and the people who had to suffer through these acts, the victims, the people that are victimized by those, the said assailant, let's say. It would be retribution for the people that were affected by it.
All right. And did you have anything for that, Abe?
I'm trying to think of how. Can you restate it one more time?
Oh, what I asked him?
Yeah.
Yeah. So it was about that, like, if deterrence isn't a proven thing, with studies showing that it doesn't really like raise the deterrence. If it isn't a proven thing, what would be the like moral or practical justification that remains for the death penalty? And then I think he said retribution for the victims and the families of the victims.
So in that case, like, I would say, first off, I would say there's plenty of places where death penalty has been done away with and their violent or their murder rates actually dropped, even though they no longer had the punishment. So the deterrence is not necessarily linked to the having it or not having it. The other part of that would be, I can see where there would be a mental want for the payback to be the same thing that has happened to somebody you care about. But I don't think that makes it justice by default. I think that justice could come in many forms, and it doesn't have to be the loss of life. It could be indentured servitude for life. It could be that person now has to earn that back, which they never will, which means the rest of their life will be in servitude. And I think that there's more justice in a life filled with servitude than there is to ending another life.
Okay. You kind of answered my first question for your side there as well, because I was gonna say for the first question was gonna be like how do we address the families basically are the ones who argue that the closure or like the eye for the eye, it requires the execution. So what is that desire for retribution an invalid desire, basically, is what I'm asking.
I think that I don't think it's an invalid desire.
Or is it outweighed, maybe? I could add that on.
Well, okay, so I don't think that it's like I understand the desire, but I don't think that our desire for it's like I don't think that the desire is unjustified by the person, but I also don't think the taking of the life is justified. So there has to be this balancing out. Like, what is the level that they will feel that recompense has been paid, but the person still lives, so to speak. So because it's the whole thing, like, yeah, I understand eye for an eye, tooth for a tooth, but if we go with eye for an eye, tooth for a tooth, then it's a never-ending cycle, because now that person's connections also have lost somebody, and now they're going to have bad blood and anger towards the system and the people who their person did wrong to in the first place, and that cycle just continues to snowball and grow into something more and more ugly.
Okay. Wrath of Reason, did you have anything for that?
No. I
Okay.
don't have too much more.
And then my next question for Abe's side would be because right now you do have some cases where a convicted murder can be released if they've served enough time. So how do you protect society while rejecting the death penalty as an option for cases like that? From cases like that, I'd say.
I would say in those cases, there should be no parole. There should be no board. There should be no good behavior. Like, you committed to this action. It was heinous enough that that in the past it may have been a death penalty sentence. So your life is forfeit. You will spend the rest of it behind bars. You will spend the rest of it in cement or hard labor for the rest of your days. There's no getting off. There's no walking away from this.
Like a
It's-
mandatory till you're dead
Yep.
thing.
Yep. Till the day you die.
Okay. Did you have anything for that, Wrath?
Not much, just that that'd be a flawed system right there. Just goes into that flawed system where there's always going to be a chance of flaw, whichever which way you can actually let somebody out. I think, yeah, no,
Well,
nothing much to say on it.
to be fair, exonerations still happen. Even in the death penalty, exonerations have happened after
Yeah.
death. If an exoneration
They have.
happens to somebody who has a life sentence, they could get out. But
Yeah.
that's not the same as parole or good behavior or getting off early, right?
Yeah. Yeah, it's crazy. I don't even know. I don't even know how that's not in the system, right? If that's the crazy part. If you know it's happened, then why would they even have a chance to walk out? So, yep,
Okay.
I get it.
Okay. I like it. So now we're gonna move into the 30-minute Q&A. Like I said, I don't see too many super chats there, so make sure you guys get your questions in the live Q&A there. All right. Or if you want to get some super chats in now, send them in now. Okay. So let me see here for super chats. What we got here? Yeah, we only got a few. First one was $10 from Hunter Cryalone. Still one of my favorite names on YouTube. I agree that propaganda. I didn't start the timer. Whoops. I agree that propaganda works. However, propaganda is not going to make me allergic to peanuts. Therefore, I don't think propaganda can make a person believe they are attracted to the same sex. I mean, very off topic, but
A little bit. Should those people be put to the death penalty? Whoa.
thank you, Hunter Krylone, for the $10 super chat. And then we got Anthony Salea here says, bring back teams again. Save us some of that money. Had to retype this so many times. Couldn't say squad before. Wait, what? Oh, firing squad. Okay. Oh, you couldn't put the fire emoji before squad. Okay. They must know what you're trying to say. He's saying bring back the firing squad again. I got you. What do you guys think of that?
I mean, there was a time I would have said yes outright for certain things, but I don't know.
Okay.
I do believe if the penalty is proven and it should go through, it shouldn't be by suffocation or anything. Even the chance of electrical chair, because there is a chance that you still live. It has to be 100%. Let's make it quick, make it fast. Don't even give them the, it has to be a instant.
Okay. So Wrath agrees with you, Anthony. And then we got a $10 from Hunter Krylone says, people say I'm a coward, but actually it's a sign of intelligence. I even found a peer-reviewed study on Wikipedia that said people who are concerned for their safety had more brain activity. Makes sense. Thanks for that, Hunter Cryalone.
I'm sure we're gonna go with that one.
I'm a little off topic, but the name still gets a W, okay?
Mhm.
Okay, so shit. Why is this top question covered like that? I wonder if I can do something like this. And it's weird. It's like the chat's cutting off the top. How does Romans 13? This one comes in from Re-Examination Show. How does Romans 13 account for moral oughts of government not bearing the sword in vain, so as to have legitimate God-sanctioned authority to deal out death?
Well, I guess it depends on how you look at the verse, right? If you look at it as a verse about war, then the government has the right to go to war with the sword to protect and defend its people. Um, and then I don't know, on the other part, it the sword isn't only for slaying of humans, right? It could be used to cut fingers off. It could be used to cut other things off. So
This is true. This is true.
punishment doesn't have to be death. It can be other grievous wounds that don't take life.
All right. All right.
And it's also a threat, right? Like the sword is a threat that if you do this thing, this sword is here waiting for you. So,
All right. Next one comes in from Original Vintage. What's the cost benefit justification for paying countless thousands over many of years versus one bullet? Wouldn't the tax dollars be better spent on something like healthcare or education for citizens?
I think that's for me. But honestly, when you look at the cost benefit analysis for death penalty versus incarceration, currently it costs more to keep people on death row while awaiting the death penalty. It costs far, far more to keep them waiting for a sentence to be put to death than it does to just incarcerate them and feed them over the course of their lifetime.
All right. All right. You didn't have nothing for that either, Wrath?
Not much, no. That's one of the
Okay.
hard points you can't really go on is the cost. But I mean, even when you're sentencing somebody to life, like you're still you're still doing an extended trial. But as soon as the death penalty is put in, yeah, it does the trialing costs unreal amount of money. That's where I'm saying it should only be in cases where it's 100% confirmed, right?
All right. All right. Next one comes also from Original Vintage. Says death row inmates cost between 15 to 48K annually, house depending on state. How can that inmate work and produce in prison something that could come close to covering their own expense and not drain tax money?
I mean, I would say any level of production, any level of workmanship that could be put. I mean, you could put them on assembly line type work. You could, like, anything that produces something that offsets the cost currently would work, right? And 40,000 a year, whatever it is, people make that in their daily jobs. So whatever it is that they're doing that would equate to that dollar point, or even just close to that dollar point. At this point, like I said earlier, right now it's costing 2 to 10 times more than to just house them over the course of their lifetime for their death penalty, because of one, their incarceration during that time, but also all of the legal costs, all of the police and investigation costs, the judge and courthouse costs. All these things pile up over time. And like I said earlier, there was 13 cases, and they came out to being like 300 million per case over the course of 3 decades. At that point, you're talking about 300 million per case. 300 million is enough to feed and house like everybody in that prison. So it doesn't balance as it currently is. It would cost less to just freaking incarcerate them and not do all the extra freaking jumping through the hoops for 3 decades to get that person onto death row.
All right. All right. Next one comes in, also from Original Vintage. Says, do you think the victims should have a say on whether their perpetrator should get the death penalty? Why or why not?
Do you get a say over what happens to the person you get into a car accident with? Do you?
I think it would be intent at that point, right?
Sure. I'm just saying, in which crimes do people, when it's not a civil case, what crimes does anybody get a say over when it comes to actual criminality? The victims of the crimes don't get a say. The legal system has set precedents, and whatever those precedents are what are followed. And so, as much as I can understand where you're coming from with the question that they are the one that was harmed, that doesn't mean they get to say what justice is for the whole of the society, or even for that individual case. That's why we have a system that doles out justice equally. The crime is this, the punishment is this.
All right. Next one comes in from Kyle Rollheiser says, if someone commits murder and gets the death penalty, do you think people would be more likely or less likely to commit murder?
So I think that
And I guess both you can answer, but yeah, you can go ahead first.
I think it's partially disanalogous because like Wrath was saying, if this person's antisocial personality disorder, they don't care what the punishment is. The crime is something they wanted to do and they just did it. So it doesn't matter that there's a chance they're going to get the death penalty if they get caught for it. I would say, again, I saw in the research that I was doing that plenty of countries who had the death penalty saw their murder rates drop after the death penalty was done away with. And it's not because of the threat of the death penalty kept people from doing it. It's just because of the systems in which you live as a whole, not because of just one thing hanging over your head. If you do this thing, you're going to get this punishment.
Yeah, and I agree with Abe at that point. Where I think if you're creating this or committing this heinous of an act, I don't believe the punishment is in your mind at all. I don't think it has a differing way on society at all of the punishment type. You know.
All right, fair enough. Next one comes in from Elderline. Says, if we are to grant an infallible evidentiary system, why is an infallible prison system not also granted? So basically he's saying, with the perfect system that you're requiring that would allow the death penalty, why wouldn't we also include a perfect prison system?
So right back there, it just goes down to my brain. Sorry, I'm just starting to get a little tired. It's getting late out here. Basically, it's for the retribution of the families. I keep going back to that point and hitting on it, and just the confirmation that those people are no longer in this earth. Why should we have to pay for them to be in a jail cell if we know they've done this crime? What's the point, right? Why should we pay that $43,000 a year when it's already been proven that person has taken another person's life? I just don't see the difference. Even if you have both systems, you can have both systems in place. But if the irrefutable evidence is in that they have taken somebody's life or created that heinous of an act, I just don't see the difference between why we should keep them in jail, right?
So to clear up, he's meaning like with the because you said one of the things is the victims will fear them escaping the prison, right? But like with a perfect prison system, escape wouldn't be an option, right?
I don't think that still changes that person's mental state, that person's still there, right? That thought's never going to go out until that light goes out, in my mind. Even if you have that system in place, that person that has fell victim to that person is always going to have that. They're in this world still.
Yeah, but
they still breathe and they still have life.
Isn't it just as likely that the person that person gets put to death, and the person that had those thoughts before, because they weren't there or they aren't sure or they don't know, that they'll still have that for the rest of their life because of the trauma? And even if they witness the person dying, that could still be there in them that now that they've seen it happen before, I mean, that's part of trauma. It's noticing that something so malicious can happen in the world you didn't even believe was possible. So now something in you has changed and you're unable to rectify the injustice and the maliciousness of the world. So now that person may feel like that could happen to them still, even though that person's gone. There's other people like that and they know that. So that doesn't change anything or help them in the long run, does it?
It does to some and does to some. It doesn't for the others, right? So it's kind of teeter-totter at that point, really.
All right. Next one comes in from Kyle Rollheiser. Says, in a country that uses the healthcare system to murder its citizens, what happens to those people?
Sorry, say that one more time.
Are we
In the
talking
country-
about MAID?
Yeah, I guess that's what they're talking about maybe here. In a country that uses the healthcare system to murder its citizens, what happens to those people?
I would say I'm gonna throw it in. It's the same thing as MAID as well. I'm guessing that's what we're talking about. It's a broken system that needs to be brought down and confined into certain areas. Over the years, it's been liberalized and turned into people's feelings and hurtsies, and I think it just needs to be condemned down into extreme cases where MAID needs to be put into place.
But in that case, is it MAID taking massive amount of lives, and shouldn't the people responsible for it then?
They should be. Like right now, if you look at MAID in Canada and what they're trying to make it into, I don't even want to get into it. It's a freaking joke, right? So they're talking about people with hurtsies feelings being able to go and have MAID done to them, right? So no. So like I said, it's a broken system. That's the same thing I think about the death penalty, and where we have that 4% outlier that could happen, right? It's just a broken system in which it needs to be changed.
True. Actually, so since we're at the last question there, I'm gonna ask another question quick. So if we did find out there was like somebody who got put to death and then they ended up later innocent, should the jury that convicted him all be put to death for justification of putting him to death? Or
I don't think so, because at the time they were led to believe that it had happened, right? Yeah, it would be an absolute. Let's say if we did have that perfect system and that did happen, in the absolute case that it did happen, it's a horrible act. But we can look at it the other way, like how many times have we not convicted these killers, or we did convict these people and they did get out and took more lives, right? So you're gonna look at a death toll either way, kind of in my eyes, right? I don't know how to say against that one.
sorry, I was just trying to type there to Plankton in the chat because I guess he tried to type a question in, but I don't see it in the Q&A. So I was just trying to ask him what the question was.
It's a good question though. Like, is there any accountability for false
If heinous, I believe there should be absolutely.
Like the person ends up being not guilty and the jury deemed them guilty. Is there some level of accountability they should hold when it's found that that person wasn't? Especially if it was a death penalty sentence, right? If that person was put to death, it's like, whoa.
Yeah, it's a hard one too, right? Because you'd have to go by the evidence that's put in front of you, right? Like, if you're going off that and it seems like it was 100%, is it now the jury's fault, or would it be the prosecutor's fault? Right? Like, they're the ones who presented that evidence. That's a big wormhole you'd have to dig down for sure. Be a hard one. It is a good question though.
He said YouTube won't let him. Why should I care about the lives of monsters? Okay, that's the nicer way of putting it. That YouTube.
Yeah.
So basically, the most heinous crimes. Why should Plankton care about those people's lives?
I'm not asking you to individually care about one person's life.
But you
Saying-
are.
No, I'm saying life, human life, isn't ours to
But
take.
that person is alive. I believe that once somebody takes a life, that their rights and their life is gone from that point.
Right, and
You're
other
no
people
longer a
might
human.
say
You're an
this-
alien, or
sure, but other people might say the exact same thing about all kinds of things. You chew with your
Yeah.
mouth open, you're not human. So now you can just be put to
Yeah,
death.
there's a big distinction between chewing with your mouth open and determining in your own mind that you're going to do a heinous act that
To
is
you. To you, because this is a subjective topic, and if it's a subjective topic, and I can say that thing is evil and it makes you a monster, and soon as you're a monster, you're no longer human, and you can be put to death for that thing, then anything is now justifiable. I can put anybody down for any reason. Doesn't matter because it's a subjective
No, it has to be
determination.
a certain reason, and we all know those. There's 3 to 4 certain reasons in which I believe would be justifiable, especially when it involves kids.
I don't know.
All right, and
But good
Oh.
point.
this one right here. Wait. Does the doctor who does a fetus deletus get the death penalty? I guess that one's for you, Wrath.
No, and I don't see why they see. That's a hard point because the system that is in place is allowing that person to do that. Right? It's not the person doing it. If they're doing it illegally, absolutely, I think they should be. But yeah, I don't believe in abortion. I believe it is murder. But at the same time, if the system's telling you you can do it, then how is that wrong, right?
Well,
Okay.
legal and
Okay.
right aren't the same, right?
Yeah, I think he meant to say, "How is that illegal?" But yeah, okay. Well, since that's it for questions, even though we got 9 minutes, I'll wrap it up there for the Q&A. All right. First up, shout out to everybody who sent in support, sent in questions. Okay, your support, even just being here, thank you, is a here you go, is a big support, big help for me to keep bringing you the debates. And again, Abe and Wrath of Reason took this last minute here. All right, so make sure you show them both some love for coming out and doing this one last minute like this. What we're gonna do now is we're gonna roll the debate outro. Okay, that's gonna run for about like a little over 3 minutes. Gives the debaters, myself, and you guys time to go take a piss, grab a drink, whatever you need to do. All right. And then during the outro, I'm going to drop the StreamYard link in the chat for anyone who wants to join, questioning anything they heard tonight, all of that jazz. All right. And tonight we're gonna go just for an hour because I almost forgot about that, like totally forgot, and then my little notification popped up, and I was like, "Oh shit!" So yeah, I have an appointment in the morning, so we're gonna go for an hour for the after panel. All right, but yeah, if you want to join the after panel, I'll drop the link while the outro is going. And if you enjoy what you have seen tonight, and you don't want to miss more debates just like this one, all right, make sure you sub up also to the Speakeasy channel, and make sure you don't miss any more debates just like this. All right, and we'll see you all in just a few minutes.
circle where the echoes collide. Truth through the static, no place to hide. Iron tongue, sharpen fire in our breath. We dance with conviction on the edge of death. Your words are bullets, mine are storms. Ideas forged where lightning forms. No retreat, no treason. This is the season. We clash our swords of reason. Cut through lies with steel precision. No faith, no fear, just raw collision. We clash our swords of reason. Facts burn brighter than a prophet's flame. Egos crumble, but the truth remains. Every scar, a mark of thought's crusade. In the battlefield of minds we've made. Speak your truth, but bear the cost. Every claim can still get lost in the war of voice and vision. Feel the friction. We clash our swords of reason. No silence left for indecision. Ideas break with loud precision. We clash our swords of reason. Strike me with logic, I'll plead my proof. We cut through chaos to carve out truth. Let the sparks fly, let the echo scream. This is no debate, it's a metal dream. We clash our swords of reason. In the storm of thought's collision. Forged in fire, pure precision. We clash our swords of reason. Reason bleeds but never dies. No surrender, no retreat. In the war of words, we find a beat. Swords of reason. Oh.
All right, and we're back.
Yo,
Welcome, welcome in, everybody.
Yo. All right, before we kick this crazy panel up, I know how it is trying to get a word in after once she gets started. I was going to say shout out to Abe again. Like Easy said, we only had two hours to get ready for this debate, and it's kind of a topic I haven't studied into a whole heck of a lot. Sorry, but hey, we just took her on, just keep the show rolling. So thanks, chat, and thanks everybody. Now here
That's
comes
what's
the
up.
meeting. Let's go.
Well, re-examination. I seen you pop in the back there first. What do you got for us? Oh, you're muted.
All right, how's this?
Perfect.
All right, yeah, I keep running into that. I don't know why. Is Abe around? Or I just see his visit.
Yeah, I think he just is hiding behind turned
His
off
presidential
the cam for a minute.
portrait here. Yeah. Yeah, so I wanted to revisit the question because on Romans 13, because I don't think I phrased it in exactly a clear way. Because if you look at Romans 13, it says in verse 3, "For rulers are not a terror to good conduct, but to bad. Would you have no fear of the one who's in authority? Then do what is good, and you'll receive his approval. For he is God's servant for your good. But if you do wrong, be afraid, for he does not bear the sword in vain, for he is a servant of God, an avenger who carries out God's wrath in the wrongdoer." And my thing is, I can't think of a single passage in the Bible that refers to God's wrath that doesn't lead in death or just the taking off of a pinky. And Romans 13 is clearly talking about citizens subject to their government. And I'm just, again, no disrespect, Dave. I just want some clarification. And I don't believe that the death penalty is called for in every case. I think there are good reasons to hold off, especially seeing as there, might be too low of a threshold of proof for the one in question, which is why we have that appeal system in the first place. But I just want to hear your thoughts on that as far as references to God's wrath and the government being an agent of God's wrath where it doesn't lead to the death penalty, or at least justified by the moral law as given by the Bible.
I would say, in reality, there's probably justified times for action to the point of death. I don't think that I struggle to be okay with crossing that line, especially because you have now robbed that person of any chance at redemption and things like that. It doesn't mean that it's outside the bounds or the purview of a government that's acting in good accordance with God's law and the people. Absent that, though, I
whose
struggle
keyboard
to
is
accept
that?
it.
Sorry, probably
Hands
not.
up, not mine.
And I don't disagree with your assessment either.
Cool. Yeah, I just want clarification on that. I might not be here long, but if you got a cool discussion, I'm all for it. Teriak, I don't think I've met you before. I think you're a fellow Irishman. My name is Patrick Finnegan. So
Nice. Yeah, were you born in Ireland or is it just heritage?
no. But when I was in Nashville a couple months ago, I ran into some Irish tourists there, and they said I had more Irish name than any of them did. That was 3 of them total. So that's quite something.
It is Irish as fuck, I'm not gonna lie.
Yeah.
Yeah, Finnegan, that's pretty Irish for sure.
Yeah, there's a song somewhere in there, but
I was trying to think about when you came up, so I'll just ask you because I was thinking this guy kind of looks familiar. I feel like I've seen you somewhere. Do you have a show you do or something?
Yeah, I got a channel. I got a few videos up there. Mostly it was my encounter on Modern Day Debate with Andrew Wilson. I was the Christian
where
guy.
I'm
Yeah.
remembering it. I was
Yeah,
like, this face looks familiar, and I can't remember where it's from.
Yeah, it's funny because a lot of people think because I oppose Andrew Wilson that I'm a liberal, but that is not the case. It's just, I question it from a different angle. It's kind of like how libertarians aren't liberals per se, and they aren't conservatives, but I would say I'm more of like a 90s conservative Christian kind of guy. And the reason I'm more skeptical of Christian nationalism is not because I don't want Christian principles in government, because I do. The question is, why are there so many people who call themselves Christian nationalists who are ethno-statists? And that's my contention. It's like, if we're going to go forward with the Christian nationalism thing, fine. Just tell me that it's at the expense of the ethno-statist wing of it, that it's not going to appeal to them. That's my thing.
Yeah.
What are you eating, Abe?
A turkey sandwich.
That's appropriate. 'Tis the season.
Festive, festive.
Mm-hmm.
Well, Tarek, you were the second one to come up. What'd you have for us?
I don't know. I like I said, I think there's fates worse than death. So for me, I'm always against the death penalty. Do you know what I mean? Make that motherfucker work.
Yeah, to an extent. I just don't believe they have a right to breathe after certain acts. I mean,
So, Teriak, your take would be to put them into some kind of servitude when they're incarcerated?
Yeah, like they're out in the fields building the roads or some shit like that. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, from a utility standpoint, I think that would be great. The optics, however, would be terrible for the Republican Party, I would say, if any Republicans were to stand for something like that. And of course, the Democrats would make so much bank off of that. If they just every day, CNN would be down there, Don Lemon would get hired again, and then he would be just rolling it in. Every single day would be about that.
You just got to make sure you pick all the white prisoners first, all right? That's what you got to do.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. We can handle optics. We can put the right spin in this, you know what I'm saying? Do the whole, play their own game, all that shit. And like I said, kind of list the crime and say it's either this, it's either, like I said, doing all this, like holes thing, like digging up shit. Or like I said, even just building the pyramids. Because, a lot of people say it's we're all technologically advanced, but then... Like, can we reproduce the pyramids? I don't think so. Exactly. Do you know what I mean? So in terms of the how to push society forward, in terms of that aspect, if you're going to put a bullet in the motherfucker, why not get a bit of work out of them first? You know what I mean?
Do you think we should have the "Hello, my name is" sticker with their crime on it?
Yeah, just turn a tattoo maybe on the forehead or some shit.
Okay. Forced prison tattoos, branding. That's even better. Oh my gosh. Yeah. Rowdy Gowdy down there. How you doing? Unresponsive. Oh, must have got
doing good. Doing good. Sorry, wrangling children right now.
Oh yeah, understood.
So I'm on mute.
That's fair. That's fair.
Bring the
Well,
children to the-
I wasn't
I
sure
appreciate your
between King
patience.
or Elder Lion who came up first.
You can go first, King, if you want to.
I mean, you were up first, Elder, so go ahead.
Well, this was the problem that I have with the debate, is that when you start granting just infallible things, like an infallible, like evidentiary system that is perfect and can never go wrong, once you do that, you've created a monolith, which is very easy to pick apart. And that was my problem. That's why I asked the question. If we can't be granted that we can make a prison system in which is inescapable, why should anybody grant the other side of this argument that they have a perfect evidentiary system which can 100% prove every single time in every case that they want, that they think is, well, not in every single case, but what I mean is not in every, but if they have their evidence that they need to be infallible, shit, I've already fucked myself up. I've gotten all lost in what I was asking. Never mind.
I think I know where you're going. Like, if you can create
I'll drink to that.
one way, how do you not create the system the other way, right?
Right. He's
And,
saying
Yeah.
it's
allow
possible.
the death penalty or go against. But then you can use the same fallacy and go against that with. It just comes down to who believes what is right and what's wrong. Is it
Yeah,
right
I
to
think
kill
that's
somebody? Is
ultimately
it
where this
wrong?
debate is the moral argument. It's not the system itself.
It's so hard to pick a side. It's so hard to determine which one's right or which one's wrong because it's all going to be based on the person that's thinking of it, right?
That actually brings me to a point, because of the perfect system scenario. It actually brings me back to re-examination's question. If you're in a system, say like North Korea, and you are a Christian and you're reading that Bible and it says that the government has the sword to punish wickedness, right? And the state has that sword to bring the wrath upon you. Are you supposed to just agree with that then?
Well, you're not
Because
supposed
the
to be
government-
insurrectionists. So even I don't know if it's in First Peter or Second Peter, but it talks about honor all men, honor the king and things like that, or honor the emperor, depending on the translation it uses. And Christians for 300 years at that point were being thrown to lions and still had those scriptures. So it wasn't a legitimization that if you are in the chair of power, everything you do is moral by fiat. But if you are in power, that is done, that is placed in place by God, even if that person is evil. Everything is God's providence and works through all these sorts of things. So it's not an endorsement of who's in power or what they do or what they believe, but it is endorsement of the office of government in general. And obviously you can't, if they're trying to force you to do something you shouldn't do, like in Daniel, when Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego refused to worship the idol and were put to death, they said, well, if God wants to save us, he can. But if he doesn't want to save us, then we'll die and we'll be with him. But the point is, if you have a moral imperative to do the opposite, or an allowance to do the opposite, then we can just be insurrectionists. The only workaround that's given in Protestant church history is John Calvin's example of lesser magistrates. And the lesser magistrate is the idea of maybe not somebody who's the emperor, but somebody who does actually hold a legitimate office, who is a Christian, whose higher calling is to God in their given office and not to the person who is above them. So that person would have the legitimacy to fight against abuses within government. But if you don't have a leader who's already in government in a legitimate office to fight against higher corruption, then you don't have that standing. And yeah, it sucks, but we're not insurrectionists.
Right. Just thinking about the different government structures, because each one's going to be different. And when the government's for the people, by the people, and when the government's monarchy, and when the government's totalitarian communist government, then I have to ask, does the rule work exactly the same in all scenarios then? Because
I think America is probably the most complicated of those questions. I think a lot of the dictatorial ones are very straightforward. You submit up until the point where it makes you directly disobey Christ. And then as far as America, I still think that the lesser magistrate rule applies, and we're still not insurrectionists. Even though we have a vote, we still have a representative democracy where it's not a direct democracy. It's not mob rule. We still have representatives in the House, representatives in the Senate, or senators rather, you know what I mean? So I don't think that makes it all that much different, even though we have a more representative style of government.
if the government...
I had a question.
Oh, go ahead.
Is the idea of the death penalty the problem being that it's government funded, or if it's community funded? Like, what if it's crowdfunded via GoFundMe / if we get enough people to agree with this? Is that the problem, that it's not the people and it's the state that are in control of it?
I'm just imagining a GoFundMe to kill a guy, and you put the guy's picture on there, and it's like, hey,
yeah, a GoFundMe to kill a guy would be insane. That'd be insane.
I'm actually
right, but doesn't that idea apply to the idea of the government having the ability of, like, look, everybody agrees that we should kill you. Sorry.
I'm actually completely unconcerned with who funds it or how. And the reason
Okay.
I am is because if our governmental structure is for the people, by the people, and we're voting to put people into office, and then those people may be flawed and they may put people to death unjustifiably, then I have to say that I don't agree with our state specifically having the power to put people to death, because they may use that in a way that is not justified.
Right. So would you approve of, like, say, the county or the jurisdiction or the city or whatever bracket you're going to use is the determining factor as to who decides in that area ceases to be in that area? Or is it like people in California deciding who lives in New York or not? Is it the separation that's the problem?
Come here.
No, it's just...
I just muted you for a sec, Wrath. I don't think you knew you were unmuted.
I think it's just the fact that our system may have laws with entailments that allow for the putting of people to death for not what they ought to be. And if those things are ever implemented and the system backs it, then you're going to see them have the right to put people to death for any which reason they could, and I don't think that that's justified. So, as much as it seems unrealistic to believe that, there is always the possibility that they could say, well, this thing is now not okay by us. Oh, you're a Christian? Okay, well, that has the death penalty attached to it, so...
Right. I'm thinking more on the lines of, like, Colorado being like, oh, well, you guys aren't for a 9-month deletion. Well, move to a different state if you don't like it.
Yeah, I mean, I think I'm mostly opposed to it across the board, but again, like I said when re-examination came up, I don't think that I stand against it like 100% all cases forever. I'm arguing the stance of it shouldn't be, but honestly, in some cases, it's obviously justified. You know?
Yeah, so you'd say in a vacuum, there are some crimes that are worthy of it, regardless of, like, if you took out all the practical factors.
Sure. Yeah. Yeah, I do. I for the betterment of society and the protection of the citizenry, for sure. But
Do you think it should be a federal issue or a state to state?
well, as it stands, I don't think that states have death penalties, do they? Or is it state specific? I can't even remember at this point.
At least the information I've found is that it is state specific, even to the degree of the way they do the procedure. I believe Utah has legislation that the firing squad is legal for the death penalty. So should that be applied to all states, or should some states get to say no death penalty here?
Well, no,
if you want a death penalty, you got to go to a different state.
I don't know how that would work, because if the crime is committed in that state and that state doesn't have the death penalty, then you would be literally having a state trading people to a different state to be put to death. Now you're like looking at the whole Rome's putting Jesus to death because the Jews wouldn't scenario, right? That's a really weird thing to
I
do,
agree,
because then it's not a private person seeking a service.
Yeah, then what's the point? What's the point of voting for anything or taking any referenda on how to deal with certain crimes in your state if they're just going to outsource it to the harshest state?
Yeah.
Well, it's just the idea of letting the state decide who gets to live and who doesn't get to live. It's like Colorado, you can end the life whenever you feel at a certain point, but in other states it's totally, they have determined that human exists at a different time. So I was just trying to figure out, like, how does one state be able to legislate that this is when a human gets to live, and then the other state literally next door gets to be like, well, this human doesn't get to live at this point.
And there's actually, that's a huge danger in your stance, actually, re-examination, because if the state has the power of the sword, then the state says abortion's okay, then what?
I agree.
I don't. So there's a difference because Romans 13 is not talking about abortion. Romans 13 is talking about crime.
It's putting people to death.
It's circumstances different.
Mandate.
Circumstances different.
How?
Wait. Are you talking about
Is
state
it?
mandate? Hold on. Are you talking about state mandated abortions?
If the state is saying that it is
I'm
legal
sorry.
and
I'm not
okay,
supposed to say the word out loud. I'm supposed to say deletions. I'm
Yeah,
sorry.
way to
I'm sorry.
go,
We
dude.
live in 1984.
if the state,
Sorry, I Rowdy
They're
Gaddy
in
was like
Canada, it's
deletions
fine.
and the fetus deletus, and I'm like, okay, I gotta have a whole new glossary.
I say what it is. It's murdering babies. That's what
Yeah,
I say.
let's
Yeah,
go.
that is
Based.
the thing is,
I'm not gonna let you two
So I
tell
don't-
me that.
I
I'm
don't
gonna
see- I
say
don't see
something
the- I
different
don't
when
see the
that's
equivalent.
exactly what it is.
Sure.
Yeah.
Okay.
And-
I feel
and
more
I
free
wanna say-
speechy now.
I want to say shouts out to Speakeasy, because I don't think I typed fetus deletus. I think he added that, and I'll give him full credit because that's way more legit.
You did it? Oh shit!
I think I
Yeah.
just said,
Oh, and I
fetus.
can't go back to the Q&A.
Yeah.
Damn.
Yeah. So, Abe, tie for me the wrath of God to fetus deletus.
well,
Yeah.
no. How is the government wielding a sword equal to the wrath of God?
Well, Romans 13 says it's a ministry. You want me to read it again?
Yeah.
I can read it again if you want.
Yeah.
So I'll just start with I'll just start with verse 1. Let every person be subject. This is Romans chapter 13, ESV. Let every person be subject to the governing authorities, for there is no authority except from God, and those that exist have been instituted by God. Therefore, whoever resists the authorities resists what God has appointed, and those who resist will incur judgment. For rulers are not a terror to good conduct, but to bad. Would you have no fear of the one who is in authority? Then do what is good, and you will receive his approval, for he is God's servant for your good. But if you do wrong, be afraid, for he does not bear the sword in vain, for he is a servant of God, an avenger who carries out God's wrath on the wrongdoer. So that's verses 1 through 5. There's more on that, but I'll
does
just
that-
leave it there.
Does that sound like our governing body that allows abortion right now?
It didn't even sound like the Roman Empire at the time that it was written, but that's not the point. The point is, overall, government is the only apparatus that has the power under God, legitimately on the moral law, to judge crime and to regulate a populace. We can't do that through vigilantism.
Right, but it's saying do what is good and it will
Mhm.
honor you for it. But if you stand against things that the government says is okay, like abortion, then you're in the wrong.
What do you mean by stand against? Do you mean if you're talking about like clinic bombings? Obviously, I'm against that.
I don't know.
But if
a
you're
lady
talking,
was
if you're talking
jailed
about
for praying in front of a clinic in UK, so
Yeah,
her
but
government
there's-
put her in jail for praying in front of a clinic silently.
Right, and it's like I say the same thing. The government at the time when Romans 13 was written in the time of the Roman Empire, Christians were being thrown to lions, Christians were being set on fire for the aristocrats' garden parties. But on average, government throughout time does deal with crime. Is government always inhabited by perfectly moral people? Obviously not. We know that from everything in the Bible, including in Israel. But the principle is what it's getting at, not is every government morally perfect and immaculate.
Right. The way that you can actually argue this a little bit better, Abe, is just grant him that it's what in his perfect system, and then bring up what is it? I think Matthew 18, and then ask him if you can then kill heretics.
Matthew 18 has to do with the church. That has nothing to do with civil law. That's moral law within church conduct.
So here it's just the first, what is it, 1 to 5. You can just use that. That whole verse is about when somebody is converting to the church, and is like a child. Anybody that leads them astray, it would be better for them to have a millstone tied around their neck and thrown into the ocean.
Yeah, that's talking about hell. That's not talking about civil law.
Okay, why should I trust that?
Trust what?
Your interpretation.
Because there is no civil law prescription from that passage.
Okay. This is so stupid. Okay.
It's not. Jesus didn't come
Okay.
to
Well,
become king.
no.
They tried
This
to make-
is
they
the
tried-
thing.
they
Is
tried
it?
to
No.
make-
This
they
is
tried to
what.
make Jesus king,
No.
and he didn't allow them to. So
Okay, and that's not what I'm saying. I'm saying that if you want a verse which shows what would be morally justified with a verse to enact the death penalty upon the heretics would be something that you could justify using this scripture.
no.
Well, if it was mandated by the state, then it would be.
Oh, if it was mandated by the state, then that's different, because then you actually put something into civil law. Now, I don't actually think that follows Christian ethics necessarily, because when it talks about in Matthew 18 treating him as an unbeliever, that doesn't mean that you're supposed to kill him. In fact, if that was true, then 1 Corinthians 6:9-11 wouldn't make any sense, because it talks about all the people who will not inherit the kingdom of heaven. And such were some of you, but you were washed, you were sanctified, you were justified, all these sorts of things. So if everybody who ever said anything wrong about God, who did a sin, was going to be put to death, then how could anybody be converted? How could that?
No, I'm talking
verse
about
even
heretics,
exist?
people who left and actively seek to harm the church.
Okay. So I still don't see a civil law verse that mandates from the Bible you're supposed to kill them by civil law powers. Now, again,
Right.
if
So you
made
don't think
law,
that laws are informed by morals.
I think that laws are a combination of morals and practical considerations. For example, you look at Matthew 19, where the Pharisees come to tempt Jesus, and they say, "Is it lawful to divorce your wife for any reason?" And Jesus says, "From the beginning, it was not so." And then they say to him, "Well, then why was it that Moses issued a certificate of divorce?" And Jesus didn't say that, well, everything in the civil law is reflected 100% of the moral law. He said it was for the hardness of your heart. And if you read through church history, one of the things you'll find out is it was an avoidant for wrathful men to not kill their wives if they hated them, or not do anything horrible to them, to neglect them. So they made it so where you had to give a certificate, show it to the elders. So it was an official community signing that this person, this man specifically, wanted to divorce this woman, right? But from the beginning, it was not so. And you look at Luke 16:18, you look at Mark 10:1-12, marriage is permanent. So that's the reflection of the moral law, because Jesus says from the beginning it was not so, going back to Genesis 2 in the garden where there's no divorce.
So then it would not be optimal to then enforce that as the law,
We mean by optimal.
as the legal law, to enforce that only people can be married once.
So that's an example of what I'm saying is, yeah, at that time during Moses, yes. And I would go on to say that when you're running a government, you have to have considerations for the existential future of the state. So, for example, I wouldn't want a church and state union for reasons such as this. In espionage, you have to lie. If you're a spy, you have to lie. And we don't exactly want the church merging with an institution that mandates you to lie for sake of national security. I think church and state should be separate, but for different reasons than other people might have. Or example, in war, you might have to do things that are going to cause massive civilian casualties, but you just have to because the situation mandates it, or even Guantanamo Bay, so we can get information out of terrorists to prevent future attacks. Those are things I don't think the church should be involved in.
All right, well, you're kind of putting me to sleep at this point.
Okay.
Huh? What?
I'm not sure who that question from original vintage is for.
If not, how would all sins be absolved?
Well, it started with should have Jesus got the death penalty, and then if not, how would have all sins be evolved
There we go.
or absolved? Sorry, evolved.
I guess it means. I guess I'd have to ask what he means by should, because Revelation 13:8 says he is the Lamb that's slain before the foundation of the world. So it was in God's plan. So in that sense, there is a should, but in the sense of was Jesus deserving of death on the cross by any sin? Then no.
I think that they didn't have actual justification for taking his life, and so in that way, no. But it was preordained and a must, if you will, for the future of humanity's salvation. So it's a strange equation.
Yep.
All right, so
should he
fine.
have
Since
the-
JS wants to be an asshole, how about I don't grant you that a spy agency is even required. I don't think that it's necessary for a government agency to even be involved with the act of lying and espionage. I don't think that it's required to have a functional society. Can you please justify why why that is required?
You talking to me?
Surveillance.
Yes.
Okay. Because everybody else is doing it, and they would have a strategic.
Okay, so everybody else does it. That means that's a moral justification for why
It
we
means
should
that
do
it
it.
means
right?
you are at a strategic existential disadvantage, which
An extreme existential disadvantage. If we're
Yes.
following God's law and we are living within a nation that follows God's law perfectly, then we would not need the other world's involvement at all. We would be
But L9,
perfect.
one sec,
We
real
would
quick.
have
you want
a
to win,
society
do you want,
in which does not
do you
need
want to win
espionage.
wars?
Who's talking? Who's talking?
Do you want to
cares?
win wars? The leprechaun. What you mean? Who cares?
If we win wars through God, we don't need to use espionage.
Win wars through God. What are you talking
Yes,
about?
we
bro?
win the
In
war
terms of
ultimately.
Like
By
actual
the
war,
end,
if you
by
want
the
to win
end,
the
we
wars,
win.
You need to have
Everyone else
overt
loses
operations.
by the end.
Okay, so are you saying that if God is behind a law or inspired a law in any way, that it's going to necessarily be reflectant of the absolute moral law?
I think that it would inherently make the country better if it perfectly reflects what God's intention is being explained through the scriptures
So if
and
it perfectly reflects
interpreted by His church. Yes.
So okay, so then how do you explain Matthew 19? How do you explain?
Give me the. Why don't you give me
Yes,
the verse?
so Matthew 19. I can read it for you, but the gist of it, and you can read it for yourself if you want, if you don't trust my reading of it. But the gist of it is that marriage is for life, and that Moses allowed for divorce. And at that time, that was a pragmatic step for the safety of the woman at the time because of the hardness of their heart, which is what Christ said. Hardness of heart is not a basis for morality, obviously. The basis for morality is God's character. So there's a difference between how the civil law interacts in the state rather than the perfect moral law. And I can give you more examples, but we can start there.
Right. And I don't care that Moses made a bad law. I don't care.
He made a bad law, even though
Yeah.
it's in scripture, Deuteronomy 24, 1 through 3 or 4.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay.
Okay. Well, we disagree.
Let's get back to unique covert ops to win wars.
See, this is why and this is ultimately why me and JS get into so many arguments. I don't just use the scriptures as a justification. I use the opinion of what the scriptures came from.
Well, can you make this argument absent God?
No.
Oh, okay.
Okay, let me give you another example. So
Okay.
Numbers,
So what you want to follow up on that? Because now I'm actually angry. So why don't you go ahead and follow up on that and justify that?
Oh shit! He's bringing the
you're talking
fire.
about Rowdy?
No, no, I agree with you. I just wanted to clarify that.
So
that's
what is
exactly
what is God's intention? Where did God put his authority?
I have no idea.
Exactly. Shut the fuck up.
Oh shit!
No, I agree with you.
We got God himself sitting on the panel.
Held the line
I-
with the haymaker. You know, the
I
slow
just
motion
don't-
where the spit's coming out of the mouth. You know what the?
I just agree with you that you can't justify this argument without God.
Yeah. And then you chuckled at the end, which was what? What was your intention there?
No, I wasn't arguing with you. I was arguing with the other person.
Well, ain't sorry you got caught by a stray then.
Do you want to re-examination's point now, Edeline?
This is a great example of the death penalty misapplied, innocent Gowdy destroyed. In this,
that was funny.
we all have our
sure the
thoughts
proof's
about it.
there
over here.
All right,
before you
so
sling those arrows.
Okay, I'll give you a different example. So if you look at Numbers 35, if somebody misidentifies someone as the murderer of their relative, it's allowed within certain circumstances for a private citizen to unjustifiably kill another citizen of Israel if they don't reach a city of refuge in a certain amount of time. So if you have a manslaughter and it was not intended, if whoever you accidentally killed finds you before you get to the city of refuge, they can kill you and not have to suffer trial and just go scot-free. Now that is not in line with thou shalt not murder. So that's not a reflection of the moral law, but that was put into Israel's law. Do you agree that there's a difference there between God-sanctioned civil law for a certain people at a certain time and the moral law that's transcendent throughout all time?
Right, there is a moral law that man has to manipulate, in which makes it practical for their application to make it easier for people to live in a world that will constantly make things harder for them.
Well, I think the moral law
when you apply that holistically, what you have is a slow decaying system, which eventually ends up with what the Pharisees were.
So I believe that the moral law is transcendent throughout all time, and that God progressively decrees more and more of it. And not that it didn't exist before, but he is showing more and more deeper reflections of it. The more prophets there are, the more that he gives scripture, and then that gives better understanding. And that's why Jesus on the Sermon on the Mount says, you have heard this, but I say to you this. And in each case, he ups the ante. He raises the standard. And so that's and I think Numbers 35 is a perfect example of a difference.
Which is
between
why
moral law and
I
civil
don't
law.
think that you can use the Old Testament as a justification for the death penalty,
Oh, I didn't. I went to Romans 13.
which grants the government authority,
Yes, with the power of the sword.
authority,
For God's
Yeah.
wrath. Yep.
force. Yeah.
Yes. Including the force of death. Yes.
Just not necessarily executing people that are made helpless.
Oh, made helpless? No, I'm not. I wouldn't. If you're talking about somebody who's not a criminal,
There you go.
Yeah, that would be
No,
injustice.
made helpless as in captured and put somewhere where they can no longer hurt anybody.
See, it would make sense.
I'm not
if that
against
verse-
prisons, if that's what you're saying.
Well, no, I mean, I think what Lion is saying is that it would make a lot of sense that that's for police officers who have to take the life of assailants or who have to stop someone committing acts of violence or crime, but not necessarily somebody who's already imprisoned and captured.
Could be. I just don't see the limiting principle there, and I could be wrong. That's fine. But I don't see the limiting principle of why that can't come down to a death sentence just as well as a situational decision call in the middle of the heat of battle or something.
Well, a police call, it can be the heat of battle, right?
Yes. Yeah. Well, all I'm saying is I just don't see the limiting principle that prohibits that from being the death penalty. I think there's room in Romans 13 for the death penalty as well as killing in a high escalated situation.
Well, why ought it be taken further than you've already got them in custody and now they're jailed and they can do no harm?
Because I believe that some crimes do deserve death on a moral level, and that can be, but may not necessarily need to be done on the level of the moral law for pragmatic reasons. I'll give another example. So, like, you look at fetus deletus, right? A lot of pro-lifers look at states and they say, we can't actually outright ban this. So we're going to throw lots of red tape at it to at least make it really difficult. No, some people will believe that that's an endorsement of abortion, but it's not. It's trying to limit it within the bounds of what's not going to backlash into more abortion availability in the next referendum. So it's a calculation. I think that's totally legitimate.
Yeah, well, and I agree. And you guys kind of touched on a point about force, where you kind of realized that it was just the conclusion about being based on force. Is that a legitimate justification for the death penalty absent God?
What, force doctrine?
Yeah. Like I don't believe in God, but I believe in force doctrine. Or let's say I believe might makes right.
Might doesn't
Would that
make
be a
right.
justification?
Might just makes.
But if I believed that it did, would that be justification for, instilling the death penalty?
I mean, you could claim that
No.
it justifies it, but it doesn't.
Justification is logic or empirical evidence. That's what
Gotcha.
evidence is. A belief alone is not evidence.
Got you. Okay.
It's what damn lawyers call conjecture.
Okay. I'm just here to learn.
That's fair.
Wrath of Reason, I like your shade of blue on your headset.
Oh, awesome! Yeah, it's it
That's
changes
also glowing.
sometimes.
It kind of looks like what is that? Lando Calrissian's best friend that he keeps in that storage closet until he activates him on his little wristwatch.
I actually had a mic. I just got in yesterday. I was hooking it up and it fried part of my soundboard, so I had to go back to the headset today. So, shit.
Cool. Well, hey, I've said my piece. Thank you for having me, and it's been a pleasure.
Yeah, you said you have a channel, right?
Yeah, Reexamination Show. You can check that out.
Why don't you drop it in the private chat here so we can find you?
Chat? Sure.
Yeah,
Give me a
and
moment.
then also, because like earlier we did I do a 1v1 debates. It's called Swords of Reason. It's just like a 1v1 pre-scheduled debate show, moderated, and it's 10-minute openers, 5-minute rebuttals, hour open floor, then 5-minute closers, and then we do the after panel. So if you'd be interested in something like that, join I don't know if you have Discord or give me a way I can like message you or something. I'd definitely get you set up for a debate. And I do an open panel blood sport debate every Friday, and there's a cash prize and everything. It's a pretty crazy one. The chat can do like mutes and put people in 1v1s and stuff. That one's a little bit more chaotic. But if you like the structured debates, yeah, I can definitely get you set up.
Sure, I appreciate it. I dropped the link in our private chat because it looks like there wasn't a full
Okay, yeah.
behind the button. So awesome. Thank you so much. Have a great night.
You as well. Take care.
Yeah,
Take
man.
it easy.
Wow.
All right.
I just I kind of agree with what you're saying, Lion. Like, I can see the police action, the defense and protection of citizenry through violence of a police force or a force that is to protect, and that sword is actually that force. It's a weird jump from there to jailing and then putting someone to death, because now you've stepped from defense into vengeance.
Every justification that somebody has for the death penalty is 99% of the time either emotional or some sort of utilitarian argument. And utilitarianism by itself can fall apart pretty quickly.
But can't you say that the opposite way, that you're basing your letting him live on the same?
No, I'm doing it based on what I think God would want me to do.
Yeah, exactly.
Not on my own
You're
emotions. My
you're
emotions is
basing
I
it
would
off
want to
of
skin these
your
people
feelings.
alive and parade them down the street. That's
Yeah.
what I would
Yep.
want to do.
If we just justified
Absolutely.
it by
No, I
what we
get that,
want, then it's different than like biblical principles, right? If biblical
Yeah.
principles state that vengeance is the Lord's, not for us to take, well, a police officer shooting somebody who is in the act of some horrific crime or fleeing the horrific crime they just did or something like that, well, that's not vengeance. That's stopping the person in the defense of the people in the vicinity, whatever, or even protecting the life of the officer. However, if you've already now detained that person, you've captured them and you've taken them into custody, the next step is either you keep them detained because of the crime that they've committed, or you put them to death. Putting them to death is now a step beyond the taking the life on the scene, because now you're taking vengeance after the fact.
Well, isn't calling the police on them? You are seeking vengeance upon them?
No, you're
Oh.
seeking to stop that action, right?
But it already happened.
You're seeking justice at that point, really.
Well,
Okay.
I don't know how that's vengeance, because in the moment you're not calling the police because you want them harmed or you're angry. You're calling the police because you want them stopped, because you now know that person's actions and they will continue.
Well, will continue. That is a we're not for sure that they're going to continue the problem that just occurred. And if the problem already occurred, I'm not really calling the police to stop them from causing the problem. The problem has already occurred. So wouldn't it actually be like a form of revenge or vengeance?
I don't know how it could be. They've now committed the illegality.
Go punish them for the thing they did.
Well, they're not punishing; they're arresting. Is arresting punishment?
Well, they're
I think
committing
so.
retribution. It's fine. It is a punishment, but ultimately, at the end of the day, just because I can say yes, I do want retribution and vengeance for some things, does not mean I want vengeance in the act of killing somebody.
No, I won't go there. Listen, the word arrest means what?
Being locked up for life, not even the death penalty. I just want them put in prison forever. Wouldn't that be if I believe that was my vengeance? Then what would be the anti that?
Well, let's progress through this real quick. What does the word arrest mean? It means
that's
to
a great
stop,
question.
to hold, to keep from, right? It isn't.
I agree.
So when you're calling the police and they come to arrest, they're coming to stop any further action of the assailant, right?
Yeah. Agreed.
On the next thing, though, like on the thing you're saying, if you feel that keeping them in prison for the rest of their life is vengeance, well, that's your feel for it. But if the person has shown that they don't function in society as they ought, and they have done evil in the world already, then keeping them in the cell is to keep them from doing more of the same. Right? And it may be vengeance to you, but to the system, it's just to keep civility and to protect the rest of society from further actions from that same individual.
Okay. So that's probably the separation between justice and, redemption or whatever the other
revenge
example
So
would be.
that's where you get into retribution, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. That's
retribution is for the families and the causes of the victims that those people have hurt, right?
Well, kind of, because it's like that's where then the death penalty would apply, because if we were going to seek the equality of the murder that they did to my family member, then what would be the not just me advocating for the death of that person as well?
Yeah,
it's just feeling, right, I guess.
It is what it comes down to, because what do you actually gain from the death of that person? Besides,
Well, wouldn't that be
besides
that would be the
mental or
ultimate
emotional.
guarantee that they don't do it anymore, right?
And
Like
peace
if
of
the
mind
idea is
for
to
victim
arrest them is to prevent them from doing it more times, wouldn't the elimination the 100% guarantee of
Sure.
eliminating them from doing it more times
Sure.
But
be
how does
the
that
be the
pay?
ultimate best option?
Sure, but even in
But how-
that case, hold on one second, and then I'll let you go.
You
Even
play
in
with
that
like
case,
Jane or something?
Yeah, I was
I'll
gonna
stick-
say there's every time when you're talking, Abe, there's like a little like scratching sound going. I don't know if your mic's like
I think it's
about to
rowdy.
go into robot mode, and maybe that's why it's doing that. Or
that might be me. Let's see.
I think it's
Oh,
rowdy. It sounds
wait.
like he's playing the
Maybe it
coins.
is
I
rowdy.
think
Maybe
your
it is
your mic
rowdy.
might be scraping against your beard or something like that.
Oh, that might be it. Here,
Huh.
let me try
You
this.
call me out.
Maybe
You
it wasn't
nailed
you,
it,
Abe.
bro.
It was just every time Abe was talking is when I heard it. So
Interesting. Well, let's try this. I'll switch it up. We'll see what happens.
oh, now we don't hear you.
even where was I going with that?
No, I was saying that like if the goal is to arrest them, to prevent them to stop them from
Right.
continuation of the thing they're doing, wouldn't eliminating them from forever being able to commit the thing that we're trying to stop them from doing?
It could be, but in that case, we've seen throughout history the ending of that person has a spiral effect also, because what you've seen with like serial killers and things like that is there will be spin-off groups or people that will then emulate the behaviors because they've now become a martyr to the sick of mind and the people that are willing to do types of things like them. And you've now inspired another group of people to either form cults around them or emulate the actions that they saw that person act out as well. So there's a danger in that just as much as there is in not ending the person.
Right. I kind of agree because I like taking it to the extreme of like, would you advocate for if there was no death penalty and everyone kind of agreed like there's no such thing as a death penalty, but for like petty crimes like theft or I don't know, simple like assault or battery, you did like 60 years in prison, like would that be more justifiable than eliminating the super bad guys as long as we just kept them all for 100 years or whatever? They always say things like double life sentences or these kind of crazy terms that I actually don't even understand really.
Well, it's because when you have a mandatory sentence for a crime and they committed several of those crimes, then they have the mandatory sentence for each one of them. So then you'll have 3 consecutive life sentences or whatever, because
okay, got you.
What
That makes
they've
sense.
earned would be equal to 3 life sentences.
Okay. Yeah, okay, based on the situation or whatever the
Statutes,
case may be. Yeah. Okay.
It's a crazy one. It's a crazy one.
Yeah, and I think that's where I was at in my notes when I came up with the GoFundMe death penalty, where it's not state decided, it's a neighborhood decided or whatever. Also seems like the old fashioned slippery slope.
Yeah, I think that just will breed a strange tribalism where the community itself is then justified at destroying anybody that they choose.
Right. And the eye for an eye, the one example you brought up was eye for an eye makes the world go blind, but I feel like that idea is from nothing changing from the fact of eye for an eye, right? Like if people actually got their hands cut off for theft or whatever, then the stats for theft would probably change, and then therefore the world wouldn't actually go blind because it would only take a couple of hands to get cut off before people started saying, we're probably not going to steal anymore or whatever the example you wanted to bring up.
I think that only works if everybody's rational people, and that's not always the case.
Yeah,
agreed.
fair. But
Agreed.
I think that would be.
What about
less of a
sober?
cause.
Sober and rational.
I think most people would think like, hey, if I steal and my hand gets cut off, most people would be like, I'm not going to steal.
Until you have people
Right.
that are starving or people that are hard up, and then they're going to try to find
And
ways to do
again,
it without getting
like-
caught.
But then they would be like, oh, exceptions
But
don't make the
that's-
rule or whatever.
That's not like we're talking about majority standard value here. I think most people would go, yeah, no, I'm not
Yeah.
going to do that.
Consensus is scary too, though.
But do you think criminals are most people?
No, obviously.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I think if everyone said like, "Oh, I speed to work every single day," or "I don't use my blinker
so
when I turn,"
there is a thing here that you're
Oh.
going on. Like, technically, there are so many laws on the books. You realize that like people break so many laws every day that not even thinking about it. So
Isn't the quote,
when
"Show
you're
me the
taking
man,
it
I'll show you the
that
crime"?
way, sure. Like, but we're talking to like hard criminals, like people that are really doing criminal actions here.
Well, what's really criminal? You know
That's
what I mean?
exactly it. That kind of negates the whole statement.
Yeah, so whenever I've encountered this debate, one of the questions I like to ask is like, because we think of like really heinous things, but like if a man runs up to like a 80-year-old lady, you know, and he's like Abe Dinkus's age here, you know, and he runs up to a 80-year-old lady and just squares her right in the fucking jaw, right? But she doesn't die, but he fucking squares her in the jaw. Like, is that heinous enough for us to kill this dude? A dude that's running around jawing
think
old
so.
ladies?
Hot take, I think so.
All right. Yeah, I know.
don't know
Most
about
people will say I think so, right? And then let's go a little further down the line. Now, you have a guy that, like, let's say two 12-year-olds came at him, you know, and they actually came at him, right? And he just fucking rocked these 12-year-olds' worlds. Are we going to fucking kill him?
No.
Well, we got to
Definitely
check
not.
their
Guy that-
Instagram. Let's see
I
how
have
trained
rocked
they
the
are.
12-year-olds to walk around.
That's kind of like a statute of
It
limitations.
goes
Bigger
pretty
body,
crazy, right?
Man, you might have to
You
swing
start testing your own thoughts, like maybe I would kill that person, like, you know, or how about some scammer that scams some old lady out of all her fucking pension and everything because he told her that she's under fraud and she needs to go buy all the gift cards in the world and dumps her whole bank account. Do we kill him too? 'Cause that's
now,
pretty
personally,
evil.
I think they should be sent to death. But
I really like this
legally, no, you can't. But I'd love to stomp those people out, but at the same time, legally, I can't.
Well, so what if we come up with like the not death penalty island, where we send those kind of people to the island, and if they survive, then they survive, you know?
And
Maybe
then
we
we'll
could start
later,
another Australia.
I was just going to say,
So
later
I like
down the
that
road,
you
we'll
said
call it
earlier.
Australia number 2.
Here's
Ah,
your prisoner colony. You
yeah.
can all go live there and be as crazy as you fucking want over there.
You've already seen
You
this
know,
episode.
I'll be down with that. Like, you know,
That's why I like. Somebody said it earlier.
if
I
that
like
was
the
my
idea of
alternative
the
option
tattoo
to
across
the
their
death
forehead. You
penalty
just
for
release them to the
crazy
general
shit.
population. They'll take care of themselves, right?
Yeah, that's kind of true.
Yeah,
but
but-
then you get in trouble because then
Yeah,
they
I was just
charge.
gonna say.
Then it's a perverse incentive of locking all the vigilantes that are actually doing doing God's
Yeah.
work.
It
They're
just
the
gets
ones that go to
really
jail
dicey.
forever.
And like I can think of almost like 100 of these questions that will make you think, actually, that is fucking almost as evil as killing someone. And you're like, maybe I should kill that person too.
It's
And then we'll get down to the line where stealing enough
agree.
money will get you to kill somebody. So, like, you know,
yeah, but no, not even
that's
that.
what I
Saying
think the
a
big
bad enough
argument
word.
comes to,
Saying a
right?
bad enough
Is
word.
that you're giving that power to the state now. So now they have the power to
Exactly.
decide what is evil enough to kill somebody. We have the power
Oh,
to
you
kill
said
somebody
that one
for
word
really
on the
evil
internet.
things.
Death.
So what's evil, right? What's evil to us?
Mm-hmm.
You know, Democrats will come out and start telling everybody fucking anybody who's MAGA is evil. You know what I mean? Fucking kill
Yeah.
us all.
Right, right. Ain't that the truth? Like, just because you see something differently, you're fucking instantly evil. Wow.
It's true.
Yeah, it really has come to that day and age. It's fucking
It's true.
crazy.
That's
But-
the danger, and
but-
that's why I said to Rathareese
Oh,
earlier,
robot,
you're
robot.
Yeah, you're roboting. Abe.
And while Abe's fixing that king,
That's
don't worry,
not my
he'll
beard.
get it.
Abe.
Theo Apologies, not your forte. No worries, I get it. But actually, I was thinking because King, you were saying you'd want to do a Swords of Reason one of these days. Death penalty probably be a good topic for you to do on for your first one. I think it'd be a good one. But yeah, no worries, I get it.
It's a hard one for a first one, I'll tell you that much.
But sorry, Abe, what were you gonna say?
Well, I was saying there's a certain level of slippery slope to this argument, and it's a legitimate slippery slope because if the federal government or the state government holds the keys to what is evil or what is legally triable, and they downgrade that little by little, then the death penalty becomes viable for all kinds of things that we would not be okay with right now. But like Easy was just doing, he's walking you down a line of reason of, this is pretty heinous, should we give him the death penalty? And you're like, maybe we should. Well, you could walk that all the way down to traditional daily crimes, and then it's like, well, we can just take anybody's life for any good reason that we have, and good reason is just what reason we say.
So then it's back to force.
Whenever we can convince a jury, this is why I hate jury trials, by the way. Anything we can convince a jury that you were bad enough, right? We get to kill you for it.
Yeah, actually, that was one of my favorite debates of yours, or I don't even know if it was. I think it was maybe
the abolishing jury trials.
At first I was like, "What the fuck is he thinking?" And then you put your logic out there. I was like, actually,
Have you ever been a part of the
I've
jury?
been working on that argument for years now.
Like,
I've been working on that argument for years.
That was good. Like,
the lawyers didn't even know what to say. They were like, "Wait, what?" The first one conceded right away. I got to just walk past her right away. The first one was like,
great.
"Well, I'll agree with you. Jury trials are a whole bunch of money cost and do take long, and they are a pain. And I don't really like them." Oh, thank you. Yeah, that's it. We'll talk to your buddy now.
And all the other, like, who's the professional in this thing that, like, oh my gosh, it's like the person that's never plumbed before versus a professional plumber kind of mentality here. Like,
hey, Word War Debate stopping in on the X side. What up? What up? Shout out to you, Word War Debate. And everybody in the chat, make sure you go over to wordwardebate.com and go get your tickets, all right? Because that shit's gonna sell out quick. All right. Once the debaters announce who they are, it's over. All right. You guys aren't gonna have tickets to go buy, so go buy them now. All right. My lovely wife shared it in the YouTube chat for y'all, so go get it.
Let's go. Just a quick question on that too. If there was no jury trial, then who would be the arbiter of the ultimate decision?
Multiple judges.
You'd have a panel of judges.
Like a jury of judges?
Yeah, well, it'd be a panel of judges. I'd say 3, and maybe if it was like a super severe case, we go to 5 or something, right? But
it's more like a tribunal.
It's yeah.
you grab your torch. You have been voted off the island.
Yeah, but the whole thing is who interprets the law, and so you have random jury that just doesn't really even understand the concept and is put there kind of out of their will. You know, they don't. Most jurists don't want to be there. They're like, what the fuck shit? I have to take time off of work.
Most of them apply for the exemption and they get it.
Yeah, for sure.
Most of the smart ones are smart enough to say something they know will not let them be included in the jury.
They're like, as long as the person isn't Mexican, I'll be totally fair.
Yeah, the lawyers, they pick based off the questioning because they want people who they think they can sway. That's the whole game.
Jury selection.
Yeah, but I believe you. But then it's like if so, then leave those people in charge. Or what's the alternative?
No.
Judges specifically.
Yeah, so it would be it would be a panel of judges, right? So that and the thing is, it wouldn't be a they would always be the same judges assigned to the same type of cases or anything like this, right? We would avoid that completely, right? To take away this
It's like the
somebody
monopoly
trying
on
to,
crime.
like, somebody trying to like establish, oh well, I have this place in this spot, and if you guys want to get out of it, because that's always the argument when I bring this up is like, oh, but judges are corrupt, and if we give them even more power, they're gonna become more corrupt. Like I'll just concede every time people are corrupt. Yeah,
Humans
that's
are.
just
Agreed.
Well,
that's
the
just
whole
always how
yeah,
it's gonna be,
100%.
right? But we would replace the juries with the, again, panel to 3 to 5 judges depending on the case, right? They would have to also have their written opinions for us to audit, right? There would be a like a
Hold on, let him cook.
yeah, there would be a board that covers auditing these judges, so that there's never this like hidden spot that the judges have something that like the civilians aren't able to go see. They have to actually give their reasoning for why they gave the verdict they did.
Full
And this
transparency.
actually
Yeah, let's go.
holds people accountable.
Courtroom-
Juries don't
yeah.
have to do that, right? Juries can
Courtroom
just
receipts.
say
I like it.
whatever,
I like that.
right? Like, and
And
I think that's
Yeah.
just goofy. Like, I think that's just
This is
so
a complete
goofy.
another debate on itself. Like, the
Oh, it
jury
is.
system
He's
is,
done it.
Oh yeah.
I
Yeah,
believe is, the
cue it
jury
up.
system should be abolished, right?
I think the whole problem with the jury trial is it's literally an institutional bias, right? Because the whole idea of a jury trial is they're supposed to have somebody who appeals to you emotionally. That's an institutional bias that I want the fuck out of there.
And,
Yeah.
well, that and they
Yeah.
don't have to
Agreed.
justify. They don't have to justify any decision they make. They
Yeah,
just
not
have
one.
to agree.
Yeah,
They
have
can
Yeah.
just say, you know what?
Anonymously.
potential
We don't like this guy.
repercussions for it.
Fuck it.
It's crazy.
And
Yeah,
that's a good
if-
way for
if-
them if they want to fight against what should happen, right? Like all the evidence
Yeah.
is there. Like you have the cases like O.J. Simpson, right? Like this is
Oh,
the
yep.
famous one that everybody can remember,
Mm-mm.
right? Like that dude did it. I don't give a fuck what nobody said. That guy did it. Right?
The
Like,
glove
but-
didn't
for
fit,
sure.
man.
yeah,
Come on.
yeah. After
Well-
sitting around for fucking time, it's just
Yeah,
so
well, 'cause-
stupid. It's right,
Well,
but
that-
that's not even like that. That is a big case, right? But then there's like, there's a case of a guy named Charles Keating, where the jurors were they were given improper information about how the state conviction works, right? So the outcome
Surprise.
was there was a the securities fraud that this guy was a part of ended up getting overturned, and he should have been convicted again. This is another one. There's the case where it was like I think it's in Florida, if I'm not mistaken, over 100 cases had to be re-looked over because every the jury instructions were wrong. They gave it to them wrong. They didn't tell them how they should judge if they're guilty or not.
Oh yeah.
So
Yeah,
they had to
I
go
just
over
thought of a
hundreds
whole
of
new-
cases.
A
That's
whole
so
new way to
stupid.
attack this. So let's say we put that judicial system in, and we have those 5 court systems in now, Abe. How about we take that and now, if those people found somebody guilty, if we had a hired hierarchy, and they found that person guilty, but the punishment to finding that person guilty, if they're found innocent later, they are put to death.
Put them all.
Now,
to
would that make the death penalty sway one way or another when you're putting the onus on those people?
Wait, sorry.
That's
what do you mean?
a good
judge.
question. Good question.
It would absolutely change how they judge.
Right? So now you're forced to make sure you're making the right decision.
Yeah, and I like that idea in the concept of somebody brought up like, should the family members of the victims get to decide the death penalty, yay or nay? And then it's like, so are you saying like if the whole family decides that yeah they should be put to death, turns out the person was innocent, the whole family should be put to death?
Holy, that's
Well, yeah, that's why that just be another thing not to just make our lives chaotic, right? Like,
Right.
Yeah, I don't like
Yeah,
the
no.
jury system.
Again, all I want to do is get rid of like the jury summoning, the jury selection, like jury summons. That's another thing. Like, why should people have to fucking do that?
Yeah,
Right?
you're
You don't have a
legally
choice.
abided to.
You
It's like,
have
what?
to fucking go to like fuck off, right? And I know if you know what to say, you'll just get off anyways. But still, it's dumb. Jury selection. You got the jury instructions. Becomes a problem in many different cases. You have these week-long delays that happen. There's been times where it goes up to a year. Okay, that's more the rarer side, but it's still week-long delays. You have hung juries. It's just a big problem. Again, what I would do is you'd have a panel that's assigned immediately, right? That shit gets assigned immediately. So that's takes out all that time, right? And then you have just say like let's say 5 judges, right? And then you have like you don't have to have this is another thing too. You people are thinking, well, are you only gonna have? Well, right now you don't like technically everywhere have to be like a lawyer to become a judge or anything like this. I just want to train people on the law, right? Like that's the whole idea is having trained professionals who actually understand the law and the interpretation of it to be making the decisions on how we're being held to the letter of the law. I don't want to give a fuck about Sally's feelings in the jury and think, well, if she feels bad enough for this guy, we should let him off. Fuck that. Fuck that. Fuck her.
Definitely weird.
And at the same time, you're putting so many civilians' lives at risk when you're doing this jury system. If you think the criminals cannot reach those people, you are out of your minds. Like if you're
happens
in a big
all the time.
Case, you're in a big case, right? You're putting those people's lives at risk. You're putting
happens all the time.
Lives at risk.
Pablo Escobar was wiping out jury members so that his cases would never go through. Yep. Like that's like it happens all the time. Happens all the time. Mm-hmm. And then we would have a check system where like there's people who are auditing all these decisions that are made, how it was made, everything, so that if we see something, oh, this guy seems to be like, oh, he only wants to convict black people. Why is that? You know, maybe look into it a little deeper. Or this guy only wants to convict fucking men. Why is that? Let's look into it a little deeper. But something like this. But like, yeah, I don't like all this like goofery. Like we need to involve this average Joe in every. No, do you understand the whole reason we have like the Electoral College is so that we have representatives for the average fucking Joes. Yeah. The average fucking Joe is retarded, guys. All right. The average
shout out to the upcoming debate.
What are we at? Like 54% could read it at a 6th grade level or something like that.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like we can't depend on all these people to be making decisions on the law.
So I've heard this example brought up multiple times. In the hypothetical of like, would you rather have people that want to be in power available to be in power, or the people that don't want to be in power are actually the best politicians, or the people that shouldn't be in charge of the death, or the people that want to be in charge of who gets to live and die, should they be the ones in charge of it, or should they be the like last people in charge of it?
I think it depends on the people you're looking at. You always have to go with an unbiased opinion, I believe, to get the way of the truth.
Yeah, but it's like, what's the test for that? Like, I want to be the what's the guy that wears the mask and does the like guillotine, but he keeps his identity.
Executioner, right?
Yeah,
you want to be the judge. You're saying though,
but that's why you have multiple, right? So if you have multiple, let's say 5 to 10,
there's not one guy that comes in saying that.
Because and I think it was to Speakeasy's point about like forcing people to be on the jury. Like you have a civic duty to you have to participate and do the thing. It's like, is it worse to have a group of people that randomly is selected and doesn't actually have any motive into being a participant? Or is it better to select from a pool of people that are like, please put me on the jury. I would love to dictate the outcome of this case.
I think that's
fuck those people too. I don't want that either. No, listen. This is how it works. This is how it works. Right? We would have a independent judicial appointment commission. Right? This would be like legal scholars,
Agreed.
senior judges,
Let's go.
some citizen representatives. Just
You
so
got to
that
pass tests
that
to
has
get this
the-
job.
the democratic legitimacy that everybody wants, right?
Yep.
And then like maybe like to have like the state's input. You have like some legislative, a limited number of like legislative appointees in there as well, right?
Okay.
And then
Yeah.
this commission would nominate candidates to
All
be
right.
a part
chat.
of those
I'm probably gonna
judicial
rate you guys
panels
off
that are
to
used in
Emmett's.
these trials, right? And the
God
appointment
bless
would
you
be
all.
like
Thank you for watching tonight.
like
If you
it
wanna
would be
continue
based off
watching
like a
this, you can
merit
go over to
base with like a
Speakeasies.
clear like qualification criteria to it, right? Like some like
Thank you.
minimum years of experience or a minimum
Yeah.
years of experience, no
All right, like I said,
no
if you wanna
history
keep
of
watching this,
being
go
like
over to
disciplined
Speakeasies.
in the past,
Otherwise, I'm gonna
and maybe
send
even
the
have
raid
like
over to
you can
Emmett.
even make them
You
go
guys
through
have a
some
good
like
night. God bless
psychological
you
or
all.
ethical review, right?
Yeah,
Just to
let's
like
go.
see
like
how
this.
they like how they're where their mind's at with things if you want to feel better. And then
I
you would
mean, yeah,
also
that does help
rotate
my fifis.
panels so that would make sure that there's no like